Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Sunday night debate on Focus on Liberia. My name is Dennis Jai, and we are broadcasting from Atlanta, Georgia. In tonight's debate, we have Team ABC versus Team JNB. But before I go further, let me welcome my co-host, Mr. Ansony Sieh, who is co-moderating the debate with me tonight, and he's going to introduce our debaters and also the topic for the night. Ansony, welcome to Focus on Liberia. We're glad to have you.
Dennis, thank you. I'm happy to be here. This is the debate that we have advertised and reached out to these two debaters who are profoundly ready for it tonight. Folks, welcome. And let me tell you that in this debate, we have two outstanding gentlemen representing the two contenders in the CPP. We have here with us George Preston Lobbo, who is debating for Team JMB. He wants JMB to be the CPP candidate in the upcoming 2023 presidential elections. Also with us is Mr. Emmanuel Yartoe, debating for Team ABC. That is Alexander Benedict Cummings. He is yet to make the case why Cummings should be the guy to head the CPP ticket comes 2023. For our topic, we are looking at the two candidates in the CPP, Alexander Benedict Cummings and Joseph Boakai, who should be the head of the ticket. I'm talking about the CPP ticket comes 2023. Dennis, that is what we have for our debate topic tonight. We want to welcome Liberians across the globe to come and witness this debate between these two gentlemen who are here representing their respective candidates. Gentlemen, starting with George Preston Lobbo. George, welcome to Focus on Liberia. We are happy to have you.
Thank you, Mr. Sieh. It's a pleasure to be here with you guys this evening.
All right. Also representing Mr. Alexander Benedict Cummings, they refer to him as Chairman Emmanuel Yartoe. Mr. Yartoe, we are happy to have you.
Oh, thanks a lot. Thanks for the time and the opportunity to make our case for the best person.
Thank you so very much. I will now turn things over to my partner, Dennis Jai, so that we can get started tonight. Dennis, you are muted. Dennis, you are muted.
Ladies and gentlemen across the globe, we say welcome to Focus on Liberia in the first ever debate on the two candidates in this year. Of late, we have had a lot of noise about framework document and this one and that one. That is, people have been arguing, and all this started because we are in a battle for the soul and heart of the CPP, who represents the CPP. So we want to get back to the issues, and we want to discuss the issues tonight. So the issues are, who becomes the CPP stand-up bearer to face President Weah and other candidates in the 2023 elections? Every time, so here are the things that we're going to be discussing. Number one, in our first, we want to see who is your candidate and what qualifies that person to become president of Liberia. And you have two, so for each of these subtopics, you have 2 minutes to respond. Second, why should the CPP voters pick Joseph Boakai over Alexander Benedict Cummings, or Alexander Benedict Cummings over Joseph Boakai as standard bearer? We know very well that whoever wins the standard bearership will be facing President Weah. So which of them is best suited to defeat President Weah? And we want you to show us the map. We're going to be also talking about everything is the economy, right? So what are the 3 economic challenges that the incoming president will be facing, and how is your president or your candidate prepared to do that? We also want to look at some gender issues, specific issues. We want to look at our division. Everything is divided. How is JNB or ABC going to fix that? Last but not the least, we're going to look at three major areas: healthcare, agriculture, and the rule of law. And we want to know how JNB or ABC, what's their plan when it comes to these areas. With a coin toss, we have Mr. George Preston Lobbo will be going first to make the case for Joseph Newman Boakai and what qualifies him to be president. And if you are watching us, please take your pen and paper and jot the point down, because at the end of the debate, we're going to have post-debate analysis. Mr. Lobbo, it's all yours.
Once again, I want to say thanks to Focus on Liberia. I'm George Lobbo. I'm here today representing Team JNB. The reason why we believe that Joseph Newman Boakai is the best choice to lead the CPP and to defeat President Weah is simple. Joseph Newman Boakai is the most experienced public servant in the CPP. Joseph Newman Boakai has served his country 25 years. He has committed himself, dedicated his life to public service. He has worked in so many different capacities. He has served as minister. He is the only one in the CPP who have led two major public corporations. He has also been minister. He has been vice president for 12 years. As vice president for 12 years, Ambassador Boakai has represented Liberia on the international stage, which means he is not a newcomer. He has dealt with presidents. He has been around the world, so he brings that international experience to the disco. Overall, locally, Ambassador Boakai as Minister of Agriculture, Managing Director of LPMC, have dealt with Liberians and understand the nitty-gritty, the issues that confront our people. And so we believe that at this particular point in time, what we need is someone who can come to power, a man who can rescue the country and can be able to restore dignity, sanity to our political discourse. This is a man for 25 years with zero proof in public any corruption allegation. He is a decent public servant. He's a great leader. And that is why we believe Joseph Newman Boakai is our choice to lead the CPP.
Thank you, Mr. Lobbo. Now the same question, Mr. Yartoe.
Thank you, Dennis, and thank you, Ansony and George. Thanks for being on this platform. We're here to look at the two candidates we have, and we're here to say why Alexander Cummings is the best choice for the CPP and the best choice for Liberia. But I must first start though by saying that I am wearing a full country regalia, thanks to Prophet Key, who thought it important to send this guy, this beautiful guy, and say, "Oh man, all come fresh with the county and all, that we're going to drive away all of the negativity and we're going to bring positivity to this campaign." But you know, I spent a whole day with Cummings this week, one-on-one. No handlers, no bodyguards, no wife, no campaign manager, nobody. And I looked into his eyes and he answered every question that I posed to him. And I came away being satisfied that at this time he is the best person to lead our country. Like Cummings, we all grew up, we were not a Tolbert or a Tubman. We didn't have the names of the Parkers. We came from market women that sold. In Cummings' case, his mom was a midwife. And all of us understand what midwife means. That those who could not go to the hospital, they had to go to somebody to have them delivered. Cummings' mom didn't even make enough money. She had to sew on the side just to make income and ends meet. When you look at his father, who was a teacher and a low-level government employee, but his mom always said that if we give you the education, you would turn out with that education to be somebody. And we've seen that Cummings stuck to the promises that his mom gave him, and today he is in a position to give back.
Thank you.
Our people, Liberia needs a different experience. And tonight, we will say how Cummings is different and how his experiences will benefit us today.
Thank you. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, again, if you are just joining us, this is Focus on Liberia Debate Night. we have Team ABC versus Team JNB. There's Joseph Newman Boakai versus Alexander Benedict Cummings. So what you heard there, and thank you, is the answer to the question, who is JNB or who is ABC and what qualifies him to be president. For our second question, why should CPP voters pick JNB over ABC, or why should voters pick ABC over JNB as the standard bearer? This time we say, Mr. Yartoe, you go first.
Thanks a lot. It's simple. Remember in 2017, our people said they were tired with the old guard. They wanted change. That campaign was about change and about hope. Unfortunately, in their quest for change, they brought forth a leader called George Weah. But the Liberian are resilient people would never give up. In 2020, they said and resoundingly voted for change. 2023 will be no better. Liberians will stick to that change, this time real change. Somebody who actually speaks their language and somebody who understands them. The CPP was formed primarily to bring about collaboration. That collaboration to put forth a message and a messenger that would bring forth the Liberian change. We've seen before that on the other side, they were on the ballot. They were resoundingly rejected by 14 of the 15 counties outright. And we are saying to you today that it is time now that the change that they're looking for must be a different kind of change that's embodied in Alexander Cummings, who bring forth the experience that we need today. It is not the experience we talk about in a dysfunctional system. A guy who understands structure, a guy who was disciplined to do the work. So we are here that the CPP is now going on the mantra of change, and we have two candidates left. And of those two candidates, the person who gives us the best chance to succeed is Alexander Cummings. I'm saying that the CPP will elect Cummings per our framework. The CPP will make Cummings that change agent, that person that has experience, the competence to lead the country in a different direction. And we are hoping as we go on, we will be able to articulate that vision of change that brought the likes of Delon to.
Thank you. Same question, Mr. Josh Lobbo, and after that, we're going to have rebuttal. So listen while your colleagues speak. So, Mr. Lobbo, same question. Why should CPP voters pick Mr. Joseph Newman Boakai over Mr. Alexander Cummings as this standard bearer?
It is very, very simple, Mr. Ja. I will use Mr. Yartoe's own words. He claimed that the other side was rejected. What Mr. Yartoe would not do is to be honest. Both George Weah, Mr. Cummings, and Ambassador Boakai were in the race in 2017. Joseph Newman Boakai and George Weah went to the runoff. Well, he would not tell the Liberian people that Mr. Cummings did not make it even to the runoff because the Liberian people didn't even want to waste their time with him. But let me say this, Mr. Ja. The presidency is a public service job. It's one that is different from a structured environment like the private sector. The private sector is heavily regulated by the public sector. And again, when people speak of Mr. Cummings' experience, it's an experience from the private sector. It is a sector that is an output and created from the public sector. Look, the complexity the public sector comes with. I think we've seen Mr. Cummings' demonstration of what leadership and structure looks like, given how he has handled the ability to lead the CPP. I would say this to the Liberian people. Ambassador Boakai is that leader. He has served his country. He is a man who gave him 25 years to public service with zero corruption allegation. What Liberia needs come 2023 is a leader who is steady, is a leader who has been tested, is a leader who has proven to be able to lead, is a guy who has demonstrated over the time that he can be trusted with public resources and will deliver. And on the basis of that, the Liberian people have come to realize that despite of everything that happened in 2017, Joseph Newman Boakai gave us the best chance to rescue our country. Look, Mr. Ja, everywhere around the world, when people want to hire, they hire the man with the most experience for the job. And at this particular point in time, the only man in the CPP who has been vice president is the vice president is the next step to the presidency. It's Ambassador Joseph Numa Boakai. 2017 was about what people wanted. It was not about what the country needs. 2023, the question will be, what do Liberians need? And I'm glad my friend Mr. To said they need someone who speaks the people language and who understand the people. And I think that by that definition, the Liberian people can reflect directly. They see themselves through Ambassador Boakai, a man who came from the village to make it to Monrovia. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Yartoe, your rebuttal.
You know, it's baffling when George speaks of those experiences and it has no basis for it. Corporations and government are all basically the same. The difference between Mr. Cummings and Ambassador Boakai is distinct. Cummings has worked in the functional system that rewards competence and hold you accountable. In government in Liberia, as we know today, things have been so bad so long that you can serve the government for 40 years and you will never be evaluated. You look at the services of the other side and you can see the difference. I am saying to him today that Cummings' vision for progress is what is embodied in the spirit and the mind of our people. That Cummings came from a low-level family background. His mom struggled to put him through the school. They taught him the principle of hard work. And they taught him honesty, and they taught him how to be more organized. Today, we see what is happening, that you can take at this time when our economy is based on foreign direct investment. Who do you want to steer the ship? A guy who is used to sitting at the table, at the corporate table, or a guy who has been part of a system, or by the way, is a landsman in a game of 90 minutes and he never blew a whistle, never participated, and according to him, he squandered every opportunity to make the lives of our people better. I'm saying to you that the corporate experience that Cummings brings, he will create jobs that we want. He will create the environment for investment that we need. It's a guy who actually has ran something and succeeded at it. You can serve government all you want to serve. Cummings' service to the companies, the corporation, is the open book. He's never been fired or reprimanded.
Thank you.
He's never been laid off.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Yartoe. Folks in cyberspace, we are watching Focus on Liberia. This is a debate between Mr. Emmanuel Yartoe representing Team ABC and George Preston Lobbo representing Team JMB. Gentlemen, at this time, we, the moderators, will come in to put you.
My rebuttal first.
Okay, go ahead, George.
You know, I want to be very clear here again. I think a debate like this for Mr. Yartoe to sit here and tell the public that government and cooperation is the same, that tell me that Mr. Yartoe has no understanding of why we are even here to compare a cooperation with government. Mr. Yartoe is unfortunate, but let me say this to you. Corporations come to countries, government leads nations. Corporations are granted the right to serve in a country or perform in a country based on the regulations of the government. So let's correct that. They are not the same. Again, let me say this to the Liberian people. Mr. Cummings comes from a structured environment, which we understand. It is true. That means he could not do anything. That was exactly what it was. Coca-Cola is a set environment where there is an SOP, which means there's a standard operating procedure. So his job was basically like an order taker. So he had to do nothing. The Liberian people have seen when Mr. Cummings actually had to do something, when Mr. Cummings actually had to put a system in place, and we saw how he handled the CPP. Here's what I would say when it comes to Mr. Yartoe allegations about Mr. Boakai. It's very, very simple. Ambassador Boakai have been tested. You know, the complexity of public service, wherein people have to be able to make concessions and bring people to the table, that Mr. Cummings have not been able to show. And that is the basis for which we believe that Ambassador Boakai, a man who has done it, a man who will take LPMC and will leave LPMC with over $50 million turnover to the government. I think Liberians farmers across the country can attest to that. And on the basis of that, as a vice president, the man who will rally the world, who will travel, come abroad, and negotiate for his country, which means he has demonstrated international understanding of the global challenges. So on the basis of that, the Liberian people has a choice to make. So again, I want to be very clear. Government, Mr. Yartoe, just for your understanding, government and corporations are not the same thing.
Mr. Yartoe, hold on. This is where we'll push you a little bit before we move to the next question. Mr. Yartoe, during your summation, you highlighted made emphasis of Mr. Cummings' corporate profile and resume and how he has come from an environment that is result-driven. We've seen people from that particular environment, for example, Trump. We saw how things became so disastrous. So to say that because he comes from the corporate world, it's an automatic certainty that when he becomes president, everything will be okay. Is that your point? Because we've seen others come from that same sector and they didn't do too well.
And maybe that's where George is missing the point when you compare corporations and government. Both serve a shareholder. In the case of a government, the people are the shareholder. In the case of the corporation, the investors are. You got to be able to produce. In George's case, you have an individual will serve and with no distinction because his results after service is what that matters. From Cummings service in the corporate world, from Nigeria to South Africa to Atlanta, he served with distinction. He left growth behind. When Ambassador Boakai says that he squandered his opportunity. So we will set forth the experiences that George is talking about and the service that have benefited. Remember now, from 1984 to 2005, there is a gap. When Ambassador Boakai left the government in 84 as Minister of Agriculture, the so-called $50 million that he left, the LPMC, he will show through George's example how he, as an individual, used that in the marketplace. When he presided as 12 years as vice president, when the LPMC was dormant and the agriculture bank was non-existent, what did he do?
Okay, I got a question for Mr. Yartoe as well. And don't think we're beating on you. I just have to ask.
Oh, that's why I'm here.
Mr. Cummings obviously had no public service experience, especially in Liberia. Mr. Boakai, on the other end, has a lot. This comparison. I mean, what's the comparison there?
Oh, there's absolutely no comparison because understand for 174 years, we've done things so wrong, so long. That your experience, you know what, the experience that George is talking about is like a mechanic shop in Monrovia. When a guy comes from the interior and he's hanging around the mechanic shop and he's changing oil, when he goes outside in the streets, they're asking him, they say, oh, who are you? He said, I'm a mechanic. Not because you work in the shop that you are a mechanic. You can't take down the engine. You don't understand how to negotiate deals. Understand that though. The experience that George is talking about for 64 of the 68 concessions, where the future of Liberia was given away, it was bogus. And Ambassador Boakai, Vice President Boakai, was the only constitutional person who could serve in both governments. That means he has hindsight into being the advisor to the president on the executive wing and also to being the supervisor of the Senate. That's his constitutional role. So even if he was that negotiator that George is talking about, he could not negotiate those deals that are gone bad. The APM terminal deal we're talking about today, that businesses are suffering from, was signed under Ambassador Boakai. Ambassador Boakai saw how bad that deal was, and he signed it. He supervised it. And we are suffering today because of the mistakes of Ambassador Boakai. We're saying to you that Cummings has demonstrated that he understands the market. Understand, we're not talking about a guy in Riverside or in Sino. We're talking about companies like Mattel that brought $4 billion investment on our Ambassador Boakai. But today, our people are in containers. That is what that $4 billion investment brought to us.
Thank
Now
you.
we're struggling for 800 million.
Thank you. And Mr. Lobbo, this is where we come to you. Ambassador Boakai's strength, as you articulated, is his experience for the length of time he served. This experience that you talk about, name me how it has helped Liberians in any way, shape, or form for which he should be given this opportunity to serve.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sieh. When you go to work at LPMC as a warehouse supervisor and will later rise up to the purchasing marketing director and will later become the first Liberian managing director, under your leadership, LPMC will become a vibrant public corporation where Liberian farmers, their produce will reach the shores of Europe. That means, Mr. Sieh, every Liberian farmer who was producing cocoa, coffee, that leadership that opened the doors for the market on the international front, gave them the ability to be able to export their produce. And it's one thing I want to help Mr. Yartoe to understand. Mr. Yartoe, when we speak of leaving a public corporations with $50 million turnover, it means when he was there, when he left, that was what the corporation was bringing to the government. Now you can ask what happened after he left. Again, he was not there. I think there's a disconnect with your understanding of what I'm saying here on the issue of corporations. So let me make it very clear. You compare that government and that of corporations are the same. They do have shareholders. Again, Mr. Yartoe, I want to be very clear here with you. The government do not have shareholders. They do not have board of directors that appoint the CEO. So therefore, government is not for profit making. The business is for profit making. Government is to provide services to its people. So I think when you understand those two concepts, then I think we'll have a debate here. But I think there's a disconnect. So, Mr. Sieh, I will come back to you again on that experience. As a former vice president, Mr. Sieh, Ambassador Boakai had the opportunity to go out to make the case for Liberia. You recall when Liberians were dying in the thousands in 2014. It took the leadership of Vice President Boakai to address the United Nations General Assembly in 2014, where he will go to the White House and meet with President Barack Obama, with them former Vice President Joe Biden, and make the case for Liberia, where Liberia will secure $25 million with the deployment of U.S. troops. So what we are saying, former Vice President Boakai will go to China, Beijing, where he will attend the African-China Summit. We know the enormous amount of gains we got from out of China. So that is what we are speaking in terms of his experience. Those are the benefits we got as former Vice President.
So let me ask you one more before we go to our next segment. That is, this others look at it as no credit versus bad credit, right? Mr. Cummings have zero public service experience, especially in Liberia. Mr. Boakai has a ton of that. So Mr. Boakai now is the one with, as some would say, bad credit, and Cummings have no credit. Will we not prefer no credit versus bad credit?
Again, Dennis, I would say one thing to you. On using your analogy, I would disagree first and foremost, because you know what? One of the reasons why we can be able to say he has bad credit, for him to have bad credit, we must be able to first and foremost establish that throughout his public service life, is there any allegation proving against him of corruption, malpractices, dysfunction? There's not a single one of them. So what will we be referring to as bad credit? Are we saying because he has not had the opportunity to lead as president to make the final decision, so therefore he's responsible for everything that has happened? Then I think that would be unfair, and the Liberian people will decide. Because I will say this to you, Mr. Sieh. There are a lot of things. In the great United States today, for example, Joe Biden always wanted the troop pulled out of Iraq and Afghanistan, but Barack Obama kept the troops there. What did he do when he became president? Was to get the troop out of Afghanistan. In Liberia, what did we see with President William R. Tubbo? He was vice president to Tottenham for 19 years. What did Liberia see when Tubbo became president? He was the most progressive president. So again, I would say this to you. I won't accept that analogy that bad credit and no credit. Here's what I would say to you. Ambassador Boakai have never had a chance to make the final decision as president. And we believe that given his experience, given the fact that he has been able to see all the faults, the here and there.
George, if I may interject here, bad credit could mean the educational system that became a mess, according to Ambassador Boakai's boss. The roads that didn't get built, the healthcare system that was in Shamo, University of Liberia that we see today. I don't think these things were done perfectly well, and 2 years or 3 years later, they are now where they are today. That could be bad credit, don't you think so?
No, I disagree, Mr. Sieh, because you know what? That itself has been unfair to the Unity Party government if we make such assertion here. What we need to first and foremost do when we want to speak on this issue is to do an overall assessment of what was inherited by the Unity
Party. Education system not a mess.
Sir, let me finish now. When you ask me a question, let me speak, then we'll go ahead. So let's look at the road. You said there were no roads that were built. Before the Unity Party government came into power, how many roads did we have? This is the only government since independence to pave over 650 kilometers of road and left roads on construction ongoing. This is the only government since independence to open road where there were no roads. It is true there's still challenges in the healthcare system, but let's use the words of the professionals. Let's use Dr. Tobo Yinsua's words, for example. He said when the Unity Party government came into power, access to primary healthcare was at 45%. By the time the UP government left power, what happened? Access to primary healthcare was over 85%. Mr. Sieh, we built institutions. We make sure we provided opportunities for our people. On the issue of education, enrollment jumped by over 200% under the Unity Party government. I think that itself is unfair to the UP government. We can talk about things that we need to continue to build on, but I think sitting and saying nothing was done, that itself will not be fair. So that's not bad credit for me. That is good credit.
Thank you. Let's go to our next. Whoever wins the CPP nomination, have you guys have articulated, we'll have to face President George Weah in 2023. Which of the two is best suited to defeat President Weah, and where would the numbers be coming from? Show us the numbers. Let's start this time with Mr. Lobbo.
No, but before Mr. Lobbo coming, I just want to refute.
No, we are going to this question. We don't want to keep going back. If you want to attempt this question first, you can go ahead.
He can take a crack at it, but I want to say to him that
no, Mr. Yartoe, we were moving ahead. So, Mr. George Lobbo, please go ahead with this question.
So again, Mr. Ja, I think it's very, very simple on the issue of where will the numbers come from to defeat President Weah. We must not forget former Vice President Joseph Newman Boakai led a party into an election. His party that was heavily divided. He went against a coalition, even though when many Liberians felt that people that they didn't want president, that didn't want former Vice President Boakai. In an election heavily contested, where Mr. Cummings participated, where he invested a lot of resources, former Vice President Boakai will make it to the runoff. What does that tell you? That the Liberian people indeed wanted former Vice President Boakai. It is true there were a lot that were involved. But again, I would say to you, Mr. Ja and Ansony Sieh, here is why we believe Ambassador Boakai gave us the best chance to win elections. Elections in Liberia is local. Politics is local. The Liberian people understand who Ambassador Boakai is. Now, what have happened? The man who defeated us has performed poorly. What does that tell the Liberian people? That if you are given the opportunity to make the choice again today, will you make a choice of this government? So for us, I would say this very clear. Ambassador Boakai now will have the opportunity to lead a coalition, or will form alliances, or will build new alliances, and he has proven to be tested and trustworthy. So we strongly believe that if the CPP want to take down George Weah, this is why former Vice President Boakai have been very clear and said, I am the only man in the CPP that can defeat President Weah. And we are counting on his strength, his experience, because this time around, we are going to make the case to the Liberian people, and that is what we'll use.
Thank you. Mr. Yartoe, same question. Whoever wins the CPP nomination will face President Weah comes 2023. Which of the two is best suited to defeat President Weah, and where would the numbers be coming from?
Cummings says, and I just want to remind my good friend George Lobbo that Boakai received the most foreign investment, 14 billion, according to their own numbers.
The answer in the question.
They squandered that opportunity to lead. But George doesn't know history and doesn't know numbers. George understands that no one in the history of Liberia has ever come back after leaving office and won anything. You know why? Because when you are president or vice president, you control the local institution. Every primary chief and clan chief in Bassa or Sino are beholden to you. Their paycheck is beholden to you. If he could not win under those conditions, when the coalition backed him, he's left for 6 years never once went back to say even thank you to those people. Do you think the guy in Sano that he lost miserably would be willing to give that vote? Let me give you a typical example of what happened yesterday in Basa. You had the Japanese government donate some equipment to fishermen. George Weah was just delivering those equipment. Guess what happened? They were dancing in the streets of Fanti Town yesterday saying that George was the second coming, President Weah was the second coming of Christ. Do you think a person who sat at the behest of government for 12 years and didn't provide those opportunities, do you think the people of Bassa will go back and vote for a guy who has not looked? The people have called for change. We are saying to you that Cummings' message was new. The two things you must have when you put your name on the ballot, you must have some recognition and you must have some resources. We believe that Cummings has garnered enough recognition that if elections were held today, with the mobilization that he has on his side, and the change agent, the Liberian people are good for change. They don't go back to the past. I submit to George that we have the numbers. That's why George is afraid to go to a primary under the framework. He's run away from a primary. That's just an election of electorate that he has selected himself. So it's our area.
Thank you.
Dennis, if I may, George, during your summation, you said Ambassador Joseph Yimon Boakai went into the gun election with a divided party. Who divided the party? And how come Ambassador Boakai, with such experience, could not unify the party?
Mr. Sieh is very simple. The Unity Party, you have to understand, he inherited a party that had won election 2 different times with our Standard Bearer, who was Ellen Johnson Sally, and now she was going to be the former president. There were people who were heavily loyal to her. The party, they felt that for whatever reason, there were some people in the party who felt disenchanted. And on the basis of that, we were in the middle of an election year, Mr. Sieh. It was difficult to be focusing on the CDC campaigning. Now, this is why I'm saying to you, everything has been resolved. Our party is united. We are focused on moving forward and defeating George Weah. Because you know what? Ambassador Boakai, as the leader of the party, this is why right after our election, we ensure we conducted a thorough investigations. Our chairman was audited. And after all of those investigations, the party moved forward. We now have a leader, Chairman Amin Muda, and we elected core officials that will continue to foster our party's development and moving forward. So that is where we are coming from.
Thank you. Mr. Yartoe, we're listening to you. You didn't tell us specifically where the numbers will be coming from.
You know, if you look at the electorate, it is either county by county, and you will look at the structure. I'm saying to you that Cummings' base are the base of the youth. Remember now, 40% of those who are registered voters, actually it's even worse. This current election, 60%, in spite of all of the publicity we did in Monserrate County, 60% of the people didn't even bother to come to the polls. They are not like those in Sano or River G that are 2 or 3 hours away from polling centers. Most people, if not all, is within 30 minutes walk of the polling center in Monrovia. But yet still they were fed up with the establishment. So they decided to stay home. Those people must be motivated and brought to the polls. Those are the people we're talking about, not the diehard UPN or the ANCN or the CDC. We're talking about those who actually genuinely want change. They're looking for a message and a messenger of change. They are not going to cast their net behind. And we are saying that Cummings bring forth that change agent and the discipline to make a difference in their lives. And yeah, the numbers are there. So if you go county by county, I just give it a clear example. If the election was held today, Cummings will come 1 or 2 in Bassa, in Sino, in the southeast, and in Monserrate County. Look at what he did by just being a newcomer in Monserrate County.
Thank you. Dennis?
Right. Let's go to our next issue here. The global economy is rapidly changing. New rules, new strategies, and new ways of doing things. What are the 3 economic challenges that the incoming president, being it President Boakai or President Cummings, should tackle? Mr. Yartoe, you go first on this one.
You know,
Please keep the question up so we can see it.
it hurts, Dennis. It hurts my heart when I go to Liberia, and when I see that a guy who is 25 years old is still riding a motorcycle. The biggest economic challenge we have is a lot of our citizens are unemployed. That when a kid graduates from the University of Liberia, his chance of getting a job is nil. And he's now going to sell in the market just to survive. Our biggest challenge before us today is jobs and jobs creation. And we have to put in place somebody who have been in the foreign sphere to understand that. That's the first and greatest challenge is education. Then skill and investment. Folks, in order to change Liberia, we got to change the way we do things. When you have majority of your people who are either illiterate or they are semi-illiterate, we have to make sure that we provide the opportunity to change their lives through skills training. I think the challenges we face is a manpower challenge. We face jobs. And I think that will be the focal point of our Cummings administration, to create jobs for our people. Because no matter what you do, if our kids are unemployed, if there's no hope, they are leaving the interior and coming to Monrovia just to survive. And we must provide the means for our people to go back to work. And who better than to put a guy who understands employment because he succeeded in doing it.
Thank you.
Understand that the private sector is the driver of employment, not the government. The government facilitate and enable the environment. That's all it does.
Thank you. Let me go to Mr. Lobbo. Again, the same question. What are the 3 economic challenges that the incoming president, your guy, should tackle?
The very first thing, Mr. Ja and Mr. Sieh, is going to be very, very simple. Liberia is a country, one of the things Ambassador Boakai have spoken about in the past is our government will ensure that we end the culture of impunity, ensuring that our government is fiscally disciplined, meaning we are tackling corruption, we are getting rid of wasteful spending, we are closing loophole and fighting corruption to the fullest. That is why Ambassador Boakai have said in his first 90 days, we are going to ensure that the government which we will be replacing, that government will be audited. We want to make sure that public resources are fully accounted for. Another thing we have been very clear where we stand with our government is we want to ensure the issue of food security and job creation is a priority. Right now, the rice industry is over $200 million. We believe that if we can invest heavily in agriculture and begin to produce domestically at home, we also can be able to create jobs through expanding the economy through the agriculture sector. By creating low-tech jobs, there are jobs we can create in the agriculture sector where we don't believe that people need all the master's degree or PhD to work there. So those are things that is key on our list. That is why we've summarized our economic agenda into 4-letter words, ARTS, where we talk about agriculture, roads, tourism, and sanitation. Our 10 major priority as we move forward, we believe is, Ambassador Boakai have been very strong on that. We believe that infrastructure development is key to us. Where we are right now as a nation, we need to invest in infrastructure. That is why road remain a paramount core center, cardinal function of Ambassador Boakai's dream for Liberia. He believed that we cannot invest heavily in education, in healthcare, because we need to be able to get our people to hospitals when they are sick. We need to make sure that people can live in Ganta, for example, and go to Cottington. Someone can live in Sanikule and still go to Cottington. So roads will be part of it. Another thing, a 10th priority on our list, Mr. Ja, sanitation and the economy is key to us. We strongly believe our people live in slums. If we're going to cut down our costs on healthcare, we must ensure that our people live in clean, safe environment. Overall, on the economy, Ambassador Boakai have been very clear. We need to invest in our people. And that's why we've outlined tourism as a means by which we can expand the economy. We can diversify our economy through the agriculture sector. By investing in those areas, we believe that if we create jobs in those different sectors, the economy will begin to grow stronger. We'll be able to hire more young people. We'll be able to create and reduce the issue of unemployment. So those will be our focus as we inherit the country come 2024.
Thank you. And question for you. I don't know if any of you really understood my question correctly. That what will be the 3 economic challenges that we'll talk about. Let me come to you first, Josh. You talk about jobs and all the things you said Mr. Boakai is going to do when elected. Where is the history of Mr. Boakai creating jobs or doing any of these things that you have outlined, looking at his 40+ years in public service?
Mr. Jai is very simple. The man who was a warehouse supervisor will rise up to be an LPMC, the first Liberian LPMC managing director, and will leave LPMC with a turnover over 50 million. That tells you that he had to make that entity functioning. He had to expand that entity. He had to ensure that the revenue that was at that entity was enough to hire people. Let me say this to you, Mr. Jai. When former Vice President Boakai went to Vanjama to work at LPMC, a daily laborer in Vanjama was making less than 50 cents a day. Before he left Vanjama, that daily laborer was making pretty close to $1. And let us be very clear, Mr. Sieh and Mr. Jai. You will not believe it. It was under Ambassador Boakai's leadership that LPMC began to process cocoa in Ganta and in Vanjama, and was brought down to Monrovia to be exported. So how do you think he did that? It's not by creating jobs in those entities. How do you think he made LPMC vibrant if he could not have done that? Again, I will say this to you, Mr. Jai. One cardinal thing we must not forget yet. Ambassador Boakai have never been president of the Republic of Liberia. This is why we are saying now that if he has the authority to make the final decision, given his track record, given his character and judgment, we strongly believe that he has what it takes to create jobs and do the best thing. Because if we bring a man who has been free from corruption, 25 years of public service, we believe that the people resources will be heavily invested in it. And that is our argument, and that is why I would say to that.
Mr. Yartoe, we have to give you that question again. We are looking at the challenges that we face in the country. Name 3 areas that your candidate will tackle, and what would be the prescription in those areas to give Liberians a relief economically.
You know what, and you're just about right. You said the challenges we face and how we tackle them. I just must remind George before I go into that is that after all the LPMC development, remember the government is still hiring less than 70,000 people. So the government really can be the facilitator of jobs. They can just create an environment for it. So we see that Boakai, after he left LPRNC and went to private sector, he couldn't create one job from the experiences he learned. But we said, number one, our challenge is jobs and the lack thereof. And we are saying to you that if we go holistically and take everything at once, we will never succeed. We will fail. Cummings will tackle job creation as a number one priority. Okay? How do you put the folks on the motorcycles and folks in the keke back to work? That would be our number one priority. 2, we are talking about agriculture. Agriculture is perhaps one of the fastest.
Mr. Yartoe, how are you going to do that? You say it'll be a priority, but tell us how you're going to do that.
So we are saying to you that in order to create jobs, you got to look at the skill set that we have. So the first thing the government must do, the government must create the environment. We're still, for instance, let's go back to the gateway of the economy, which is the free port. Under George's government, Ambassador Boakai signed the right away to APM terminals, and we can facilitate the free flow of business because of that deal they made. Cummings going to rescind that deal, and he's going to make sure. For instance, if you just have a simple tax place on a container, where Liberians who want to do business, those in the diaspora that have money to invest, they are the enabler of the economy. They're the driver of the economy. If you create that system for them to come back, that's how you create jobs. You create the environment. You modernize the technology. Today, to do business in Liberia, just to register a business takes forever. Okay, so if you shorten that time and you make a one-stop shop, Cummings is a guy who is from the corporate world who understands system, and I think by introducing technology, simple technology, to make it easier to do business in Liberia, that's how you create jobs. You don't create jobs by employing. You create jobs by doing that. That on the job section, and that is the portion that we are talking about: jobs creation in the private sector, creating the environment for us.
Thank you, Mr. Yartoe.
Thank you.
Dennis?
Yeah, let's go to the next. and which is kind of similar. Liberians are experiencing deep division in our social fabric. Could be ethnic, class, gender, all areas that tend to divide us, politics and you name it. What is the role of a leader in this? And what will be the role of Mr. Cummings in bridging the ethnic, class, gender divide among Liberians? Mr. Yartoe.
You know what? I'm happy you said that. For the little that I've been able to gather from Cummings by knowing him, Cummings is somebody who will look at the person for who they are and not where they come from. Cummings administration will be solely based on competence and your contribution. Cummings will not be there to say that look at my environment and only those that are from my ethnic group are the ones that are working for me. Cummings, if you look at his operations right now, you will see a diverse compilation of all of the ethnic tribes and all of the gender. If you look at his former chief of staff, it's a lady. If you look at his current chief of staff, it's a Bassa man. Cummings does not promote or rely on ethnicity as a means of promoting himself. Cummings looks at the competence and the contribution of that person. I think if you look at his past experiences and you look at what he's done in his own personal life and what he's doing right now, you would know that under his administration, he will bridge that gap that we have, that people only employ based on their tribe members. And I'm confident that the life that Cummings has lived in the community right now, that he will be a better unifier than anyone in the CPP at this moment.
Thank you. Mr. Lobbo.
So here's what I would say to you, Mr. Ja. One of the reasons why so many Liberians have gravitated towards former Vice President Boakai is because Ambassador Boakai is a true reflection of that struggle for a young man who will leave Wesonga, who will come to Monrovia, not expecting anything, not going to anyone, but will come to the capital, where he will go to the school of the elites, the school where Cummings' mother had the ability to pay his school fee, where Ambassador Boakai at that school will have to be a janitor there to go to that school, and will later on graduate from that very same school, will go to the University of Liberia. So one thing he brings to the table is this: the Liberian people feel connected to Ambassador Boakai because every single child, whether in Flumpa, whether in Beyplin, whether in Nengben, whether in Kanwi, whether in Zorgowi, understands that if Joseph Numa Boakai can leave the forest of Lofa and come to Monrovia and succeed, he himself can do it. So again, Mr. Sieh, I listened to Emmanuel Yartoe talking about the community where Mr. Cummings live. Mr. Yartoe, I know you're not familiar with Mr. Cummings. You just got on his team. Mr. Cummings lived in Georgia for more than 20 years. The records are there. Mr. Cummings was never involved with the local community in the Georgia where he lived. That is one of the reasons, even in Liberia, Mr. Cummings, it had to take former Vice President Boakai in 2015 to bring Mr. Cummings to serve on the board of Lama, where 10,000 was donated. So on the issue of reaching out, I would say this to you. One thing Ambassador Boakai have been very clear on is fostering reconciliation in the country. And again, Dennis, no one is best suited who understand the problem of our country than former Vice President Boakai, who has served as LPMC boss and agriculture minister, because through all his service to his country, he was in Liberia traveling and meeting his people. So therefore, he understands what needs to be done. And that is why Liberians are gravitating towards the former vice president.
Mr. Lobbo, the question is, let me put that on the board and I'll come back to you about the deep division in the country, starting with ethnic division. We see a lot of people from Lofa County, Mr. Boakai, own county, support him overwhelmingly. And Mr. Boakai, to me, has not stepped foot in, as far as I remember, in the Southeast. That is not members of his ethnic group. They have, he has practically ceded Southeast to Josh Weah, has said, okay, Southeasterner, and people who support Mr. Boakai always talk against Southeasterner as if that is not part of Liberia. When has or where has Mr. Boakai demonstrated that he can bring people together from various ethnic, political, class, and gender divide?
Mr. Sieh is Mr. Jai is very simple. Ambassador Boakai is the standard bearer of the Unity Party, which consists of Liberians from all walks of life. Again, we must understand this. There's always the issue of ethnic divide. The leader has a responsibility on that. But the people in every county will decide what are the issues they want to vote for and who they want to vote for. Here in the great United States of America, the people of Illinois voted over 1 million for Barack Obama. So what are we saying was their ethnic divide? What I will say to you, Mr. Jai, Ambassador Boakai, as former LPMC boss, he had to work with farmers from across the country. As agriculture minister, he worked with Liberians from all walks of life. What I would say right now is to give him that opportunity and see if he was elected president, and we look at what his makeup of his cabinet will be, what his inner circle will be, then we can be able to say, oh, he does not want this.
Mr. Lobbo,
let me finish
no, let me inject something as you continue. To know what your Christmas will look like, you look at the east. Mr. Boakai, I don't know how many people from Sino, Grand Cru, Grand Jita, or when was the last time he visited that part of Liberia?
But Mr. Sieh, Ambassador Boakai, as a former vice president, we must not forget, though, during the campaign, he toured the entire country. He has not gone on a county tour yet. That is something he is working towards.
What is stopping that, George?
Nothing is stopping him. It is a preparation. It's based on his schedule. The former vice president will be traveling to the States, right? He's coming to America hopefully the end of this month. So
can we say that the next time we see Ambassador Joseph Walker traveling to the Southeast,
I show you we are planning.
Let me learn, George. Let me learn. It will be campaign time, right?
No, I will not listen. It's not my responsibility.
Are you sure it will not be campaign time?
No, it won't be campaign time because we have listen, Mr. Sieh, I can't sit there and give you all our plans. As far as we are concerned, the people in the Southeast, we do not believe that certain people in the Southeast belong to somebody. It is our responsibility to make our case to all Liberians across the political spectrum. Now,
Mr. Boakai has not made that case yet. He has not made that case to the Southeast yet.
But Mr. Boakai have not been traveling around like that, Mr. Jai. So I don't think it's for us to say that.
Dennis,
let's wait and see when he takes his county tour.
All right, George, we'll leave it there. Let's come to you, Mr. Yartoe. Mr. Yartoe, let me pull it to you a little more here. Our country, like we said in the question, is divided politically. Even on ethnic line, we are divided, especially when it comes to politics. Politics become a little more. We need a leader who will say, look, we have to go beyond this. Can Cummings do it?
Oh, yes, I can believe.
So then what can we look at?
But look at his track record. Cummings today, if you look in his employ, you have people from all stripes of life, all ethnic groups, all gender. I just gave you an example. Cummings appointed a young, thriving lawyer as his chief of staff. Boakai never would have done that in his own private capacity. Let George give me an example on where Boakai has employed people other than those from Lofa. Remember now, their own camp said that the most tribalistic person in this race, and that means saying no, that somebody from their own camp said that Boakai is the most tribalist person. We are saying to you that you lost the election in 2017. You have not even gone to say thank you, my people, for casting your vote. He got over 400,000 votes. He has never traveled. George wants us to believe that he will jump off all of a sudden to come to America, and then before he will wait till election time before he come and say thank you to you. Do you think the guy in Bapolo will not forget a Boakai that doesn't control the institution and the local government? We're saying to you that Cummings campaign more. Remember now, this gone election that Cummings was the CPP candidate. He campaigned more for all the candidates than Boakai did. As a CPP stalwart, Cummings has every step of the way supported every candidate. He has gone to every single county to say thank you. While Boakai is resting and parked in the garage as usual, Cummings has been on the road saying thank you to people and unifying them. He supported people regardless of their tribe or regardless of their ethnic background.
Thank you, Mr. Yartoe.
Can I respond to that?
And then let me add do that, and George is for you. I don't know who are in Ambassador Boakai's cycle.
Thank you.
But I have not seen or heard the name of a lady. We're talking about general issue here. I know about 4 persons that are in his inner circle as we speak. I don't know of a lady. Can you share with us, if you know, whether or not there is any lady in the vice president office as we speak or on his team?
If you want, Mr. Sieh, I will send you the accounting name. I don't want to give the false name, but there is the lady who has the finances. Yes, there is a lady in his office. Absolutely. Yes, I know. And if you want, I can have George send me the picture and I send it to you. But I don't know her name because I saw her the other time when I was there. But let me say this real quick.
But you know the guys.
No, not everybody, because I know few people. Let me say four, right?
And all the people you know are guys.
But let me, Mr. Sieh, Mr. John,
it's very important to me because you're saying.
Yeah, but let me finish now. I told you I will say you don't. Let me finish now. I don't know every single staff because the former vice president. Don't forget, he is the political leader of the Unity Party. The Unity Party. I can name so many females. You had the opportunity to interview Cornelia Crow, who is one of our party officials. There are so many of them. I can name some of them. But like I said, here's what I want to speak on this issue, Mr. Ja. I think the former vice president, Mr. Yartoe, maybe you don't understand. There's a difference between former vice president Boakai and Mr. Cummings. Mr. Cummings have not been in Liberia. So his obligations and his responsibility in Liberia is different from the former vice president. The former
George,
vice president
did you say he has not been in Liberia?
When I say has not been in Liberia, Mr. Cummings was out of Liberia for over 23 years. He has been going back and forth. So on the issue of him traveling, Mr. Yartoe, here's what I want you to understand. In 2000, let me finish. So when you spoke, I didn't speak. When you were speaking, I didn't speak, Mr. Yartoe. So let me finish. When you were speaking, I didn't speak. I didn't interrupt you.
Go ahead, Josh.
Okay. So here's what we need to understand here. Politics is not cheap. Mr. Cummings needs to buy popularity. So however way he chooses to do it, that's his business. He can travel every day, every other hour. That's fine. What is it go? That's why you begin the show with. You talk about Mr. Cummings is connected.
Are you saying that Mr. Boakai has popularity?
So again, let me say this to you. Politics is not cheap. Dr. Kasef brought in a chopper to move around, right? However way you choose to make your case for you, that is fine for you. As far as I'm concerned, we know very well that Ambassador Boakai will have to make his case to all Liberians across the 15 political subdivision, and we'll do just that. So, Mr. Yartoe, just for your understanding, Mr. Cummings, buying popularity is not cheap, and that's what he's doing. So you're going to keep doing this.
I have a question for Mr. Yartoe. Mr. Yartoe?
Sitting in the garages is better.
Mr. Yartoe, let me ask my question. All right. Mr. Cummings does not have the public service experience working anywhere in Liberia, but at least we can look somewhere and look for something, right? We look how he has handled his own party, the ANC, and also the CPP, and draw from there what it will be like when he becomes president. We see that the ANC, especially the ANC Global, have become, or members of the ANC have become the most combative partisan around. Show me how will Mr. Cummings bring people together when he's president, when he cannot do that for the ANC or even bring peace among ANC members or ANC global members who have become very cantankerous in this internet politics.
You just look at, for example, I'm not an ANCN, I'm not a CPP member, I'm a non-political partisan, and he was able to bring me on board. Look at Isaac Tukpa, a stalwart sedition was brought on board. That tells you the kind of man. I can guarantee you, with the kind of criticism that I have given Mr. Cummings before, or that Isaac Tukpa has levied against the ANC, I don't think that Boakai would have brought two persons like Isaac and myself on board. I'm saying to you that people in the defense of a person, Cummings said to me something that was very profound. Sometimes people think that he's so soft and overcompensate. People are saying stuff on the internet that sometimes doesn't represent. But look at the kind of appointment that he's done. Look at the kind of people that he associates himself with directly, that he can take credit for. He can take credit for Emmanuel, that has been a critic of him, and said, look, I want the best people to come on board. That is the kind of leadership you look for. A person that will lay out the vision and bring in the most competent people to fulfill that vision. It's not a person who, when you go in his office, 99.9% of his people are nothing but his trashman. And his own supporters will say that he is perhaps the most tribalistic person that ever lived in government. I'm saying to you today that Cummings has demonstrated, and he has been very right, that the past experiences will predict the future happenings. And you look at the way he employed people. It is not based on tribal grounds. He employed people based on competence. And I'm saying to you that that is the kind of leadership you want. And as visiting your people, what do you think is wrong with him going and say thank you to people who didn't know him and didn't vote for him? Well, a guy who people voted for never had the audacity to go and say thank you. And he's parked in the garage and he's waiting for another election before he can say thank you to you. I'm saying to you, never before in the history of Liberia, since Barclay, that a person with lost office has come back to win anything, because it's like John Lobbo said, they feel entitled to the position and they sit back. They sit back and they think that people deserve them. That's the reason why you see George Lobbo doesn't want to go to a convention. He's going for consensus.
Dennis, you are muted. Dennis, you are muted.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you are just joining us, this is Focus on Liberia Sunday night debate. We have Mr. Emmanuel Yartoe representing Team Alexander B. Cummings and Mr. George Preston Lobbo representing Team Joseph Yuma Boakai. And both are making the case for their respective candidates. In a little while, we're going to open the phone lines. We're going to read comments so that you become part of it. But we want to move to a very crucial area. We want to pick 3 sectors in Liberia and see where each of these candidates stand on them. We have healthcare, we have agriculture, and the rule of law. We want for our debaters to give us specifics as close as possible, not platitudes, on what is your candidate plan in each of these sectors. And we want to take them one at a time. So we want to give you a little bit of time to say specifically what is your candidate's plan.
Thank you, Dennis. I think I want to first of all tackle what is the ill in Liberia today, and it's the rule of law. That the impunity that exists in our community is so great that no one wants to invest in Liberia, because no one will put money after bad conditions. Mr. Cummings believes that to change Liberia, we must first of all change corruption. That a special anti-corruption court that was proposed and has never been implemented will be set up to track corruption, to end impunity. That he's always said that the first thing he would do is to punish harshly those within his inner circle that will engage in corruption. I think the impunity, the rule of law, starts with giving people fairness in the execution of the law. An anti-corruption court will be priority number 1 for Cummings. Liberians realize that court must be independent. If you set up that court, and that court is separate from the judiciary as we know it, and that anybody who is accused of a crime must first resign, not like they have today, where the improprieties, we at least will have to suspend the person, and then if the person is charged officially, they must be removed from the office. We are saying today that Cummings will support the anti-corruption court as a start. And also, Cummings will fund heavily the anti-corruption commission. That commission is important because they must be given the leverage to investigate any and everyone. And if you fund them and you give them the independence that they need without interference, is the way. And because he comes from a culture, and that's why we always say that the experiences in the past is what will guide you in the future. Remember now,
Mr. Yartoe, there are 3 sectors. You can move to the next.
So that is one. That is one. That is where we'll focus on. We'll focus on that. we talk about the economy too, right?
No, we talk about the rule of law, healthcare, and agriculture.
Well, we've said in agriculture that the key to developing Liberia is to set up these small-scale farmers cooperative that George will talk about, but he will not say how his man left that government environment and went in the private sector. We are saying that you must give the opportunity to the Liberian, the average Liberian, through the agricultural development bank that we had before in the past. So I think the first step is to start the agricultural development bank so that small scale farmers. The biggest challenge that our people have now is that they have no way of acquiring seed money to start their farm. Most of the farmers are not guys who are looking for $200,000 or $300,000. If the guy could get $1,000 or $2,000, is sufficient to get him started. We believe that the agriculture sector, the government can start by investing in the agriculture bank, by remember now, reinstituting the LPMC model, but this time privatizing it. Understand that Ambassador Boakai was there for 12 years. He did not advocate for that LPMC model that he served. So I think on agriculture, those systems would be the small steps that you must take to get started. Healthcare, it hurts my heart that we have a healthcare system that is in mess. That after $14 billion of investment on Ambassador Boakai, he left us a mess, a squandered system where NGOs were all over the place giving money for free. We believe that low-cost healthcare for all Liberians is central to Cummings' agenda. Priorities must be given to preventative primary health care. The average man is sickened by mosquitoes, is sickened by typhoid. What will help us prevent access? Low-level technology. Those are the things that Cummings will focus on. How work to ensure that all Liberian children have access. They must be to healthcare. They must be immunized. I'm saying to you that Cummings is in a capacity to go out there to find the funding that we need. Look at what he's done in his own personal life through the Cummings Foundation. This gone Ebola, he's donated $150,000 in the coronavirus. During Ebola, he donated $50,000. That is why you're talking about intervening in healthcare. And we believe that he will prioritize health clinics and access to healthcare.
Thank you. Thank you. Now we go to Mr. George Preston Lobbo. George, again, the three sectors, healthcare, agriculture, and the rule of law. What is JNB's plan in each of those key sectors?
So very, thank you very much. It's a brilliant question. I think that is why the Liberian people want to hear from us. Why our candidates? And I just wanted to clarify a few things. The current Assistant Chief of Staff, Ms. Maureen Noma, she's from Maryland County. She is in JNB's office. That is the lady's name. It just could not come to my mind. And Mr. Sieh, I will do something when I leave this show. I will send you JNB entire office staff when he was former vice president, so you can have that. I will
George, I'm not cutting you off. Myself received that information. I'm waiting for the appropriate time.
Okay.
To make it known to the public.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to. Okay, great. So you know that. Let me come on the issue and based on the questions. You know, Mr. Sieh, I think it's a brilliant thing, and Mr. Jad. Why is it important on the issue of the rule of law? Ambassador Boakai is the only candidate who have been very clear that in his first 90 days, he intends to audit the government he will replace. Why is auditing the former government very important? We strongly believe that if we are going to demonstrate to the world that indeed we are a responsible nation, where fiscal discipline is going to be the core of how we lead our people and invest in infrastructure and in improving their life, we have to make sure that the little resources we have, that people cannot continue to take public funds for their personal use. On the issue of rule of law, that's where it comes to play, because we have to make sure that we have a functioning judiciary system, not a kangaroo court where people can get their way out of the court system. Now a court where the Supreme Court itself can misinterpret the law, where an associate justice can be removed. We don't want that. We want a government that all Liberians will be held by the same standard, by the same laws, because we believe that the rule of law is paramount if we are going to create a vibrant, stable environment. If we want investors to trust our country, we have to ensure that the rule of law remains center of our governance structure. And this is why Ambassador Boakai is on the record for saying his goal is to end the culture of impunity and ensuring that those found against the law will be held fully responsible. On the issue of healthcare, Mr. Jah, we all understand what the Unity Party government inherited in 2006. Liberia was referred to as a failed nation. Basically, you can say the UP government took Liberia out of the graveyard. So we did not expect, there was nothing there. But again, what did we see? We saw transformation. We saw renovation, constructions of new healthcare centers all across the country. Those ones that were in existence, we saw them being renovated. We saw investments. We saw subsidies being provided through the government to ensuring that healthcare was provided to our people. What we are saying now, based on Ambassador Boakai's plan, this is why he has said that on the issue of healthcare, we want to invest more money in the issue of prevention. How do we prevent? If we can make sure that our people are not getting sick and going to the hospital, it will cut down our healthcare costs, and we can begin to redirect some of that funding towards the agricultural sector, the tourism sector that we are heavily counting on to expand our economy. So again, I will say this, healthcare remains a challenge in Liberia, but Ambassador Boakai have made it very, very clear that for him, he is focused on the issue of healthcare. This is why sanitation, if you listen to our 4-letter words, ARTS, agriculture, roads, tourism, and sanitation. If we want our people to be healthy, we have to make sure that they do not live in slums. We have to get our people out of those environments, those terrible conditions they live in. We have to make sure, and our government must be very clear. We want to make sure that every single dollar that is available, it is spent on the people. This is why Ambassador Boakai have made it very clear that investing and providing subsidies for government-owned and private entities, especially in the healthcare sector, will be important. This is something that is key to our heart. We must not forget, Ambassador Boakai is the only Liberian presidential candidate who have been very clear on the record that he wants to get Liberia off of this dependency of aid. And before I go to the next point, I just wanted to help Mr. Yartoe here again. Mr. Yartoe, just free information for you. This lies that you continue to peddle, you've stated it 4 times, and I think it's about time that I correct you. There was no $14 billion investment that went into Liberia. Let me help you again. Over the 12 years, we attracted $16.5 billion in foreign direct investments. I will want for you to do research on it, so the next time you speak on it, hopefully you will have better understanding of it. So to continue to peddle those lies here and tell the Liberian people that $14 billion was invested in Liberia over the course of 12 years, it is very, very deceptive. But I'm not surprised. It is the tendency of the ANC to continue to peddle lies. Even when you are caught, you continue to tell lies. So I hope you can do research and understand what foreign direct investment is, so that your next debate, maybe not this time, you will be able to do better and don't peddle those lies. Okay? So on my last issue of agriculture, Mr. Jah,
you have 30 seconds now.
Okay. We're going to invest in agriculture as part of our ARTS plan.
Thank you. My question to you on this, on healthcare, right? Mm-hmm. In healthcare, there are 3 major issues, and the same can be said about education. Access, meaning when people are sick, are there hospitals, are there clinics around for them to go to? Do they have access? The second is cost. If they are sick, can they afford to pay for healthcare? And third, quality. When they go to hospitals sick, do they return sicker? Is there quality healthcare? In your view, what is the major issue confronting the country? Is it access? Is it cost? Or is it quality? And how does JNB intend to tackle that?
Dennis, I would say everything, because you know why? Let's start with access, for example. The Unity Party government built a $10 million hospital in Tapeta, but accessibility is difficult. People getting there, the roads are bad.
Which of them is major? Access, cost, or quality?
Look, I would say this, Dennis. In Liberia, government have been able to subsidize hospital costs in Liberia. So the issue of cost cannot be. I will look at access and quality, because all responsible government, except this government that is cutting funding for hospitals, the UP government, we can look at the budget. There were tremendous amount of resources being put into the hospital. But again, quality. You see, when we speak in terms of quality, Mr. Ja, we have to also understand that given where we came from after 14 years of civil conflict, this is why the Unity Party, I would never sit here and say the Unity Party healthcare system was all that. No, but we saw this incremental step towards progress and restoring Liberia's healthcare sector. That is why the UP government in 2010 began a program where we begin to send doctors outside the country to train and come back. We brought different programs in where we increased their incentives to hire more people to that sector. So we made those incremental steps. And that is why I would say, but I will tell you, Mr. Ja, access is key, because it don't matter where we build new hospitals. If we don't have roads, if our people can't get there, even if we have ambulance, if the ambulance gets stuck in the mud, the patient might die in the car. So access and quality will have to be our major focus, and the government is investing heavily into that.
Thank you.
So Ansony, maybe George.
Mr. Yartoe, I have a question for you.
I just want to follow up on this.
I didn't follow up. Is a question.
Hold on. You want to respond to the same question as what you're saying?
Respond to the same question, because
George, go ahead. You have the time.
George has not been to any Liberian hospital lately. Maybe that's the reason why he doesn't think that cost is important. The average person who goes to the hospital, they can't even afford to go to JFK or any of the government hospitals, because the first thing you have to do is to pay a certain cost, even just for registration. We must get rid of that. Cost is burdensome to our people. Our people who live in Buchanan, or they live in Banga, or even his own Vonjaman, don't have the capacity to go to the hospital, because when they get there, they have to pay certain costs. Because the government will spend money. He talking about directing funds to agriculture from health. I mean, we can barely afford to treat our people. How do you divert money when we are not even investing the right kind of money in that? So by doing preventative measure, you still have problem. Access is very important, like you said. Sometimes the trained personnel is not there. The support to the health facilities is not there, and that's what the government was investing. The government was not only investing. If you provide the roads for the clinics in Sino, but there's no medicine, what does it do? So the whole genre of activities must be, we got to make it affordable for our people. We got to make sure that it is a responsibility of the government, and also it's a right of everybody to not only education, but to free healthcare. We must do better in investing. And I think Cummings understands that a healthy nation is a nation that can work. An unhealthy nation is a nation that will not work. So for you to say that cost is not a factor, I think it's not doing the Liberian people a service. Our people are paying exorbitant amount just to register. There's no drop.
So, Mr. Yartoe, what's the major one, if you can say that? That was the question.
I would say right now the major one is the access and the cost. They both work hand in hand. Even if you have the access and the cost that you can afford, remember that the average person is still earning $1 a day. So that person must be able to go to that hospital that's available and also make sure that he's taken care of. So you can't put a cost and say you provide access, but there's a cost. The average villager does not have the $5 or $10 US to register or to buy drugs. You got to provide the facilities for them.
Thank you.
Then there's
1 minute, real quick. I want to clarify something.
George, quickly.
I don't want Yartoe to lie on me before I leave from here.
Yeah,
Mr. Yartoe, at no point in time did I say we should divert funds from the healthcare sector to the agriculture. And I think like what you've demonstrated here, understanding the questions have been one of your serious challenges here tonight. Here's what I said to you, that I strongly believe that if our government invests heavily in sanitation, where we make sure that we invest in the preventive measure, that less people are getting sick, that means the government will have additional resources that we can now begin to direct towards different other programs. Liberia will not be the only country. Mr. Yartoe, I will refer you to do this. I want you to read on how South Korea was able to invest in its country. The people invested heavily into family planning, they saving from healthcare, they invested into Samsung and other programs. So countries around the world do something else and take that other money, they're saving from that money, and put it into something. So again, like I said, I hope your next debate you come prepared and understand the issues on that. That's why I'm trying. So
and finally, gentlemen, we are about to get to the point where you ask each other 2 questions.
Beautiful.
But this is my question to you both, and I'm giving you 1 minute to answer. Mr. Yartoe and Mr. Lobbo, the plans that you are talking about, both of you, on behalf of your candidates, where can Liberians find it right now? Mr. Toe, you go first. Where can we find your candidate plan right now?
Right now, I think if you attest to that, Cummings has put forward a plan, and I email you that plan. If you go, he will give you.
So Cummings plan is in my email.
It's in your email. I sent it to you before.
And you think that's a real place supposed to be? Is it for me or is it for the Liberian people?
For Liberian people. Cummings go out.
So where do Liberians go to get it, to see it?
Liberians, if you go to Alexander Cummings, the website has been developed. He will send you that email. The folks at the ASC has made the point, and they will provide you with that email. But Cummings do have a plan that is circulating all on the internet.
Thank you, Mr. Yartoe.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Lobbo, same question. Where can Liberians go right now as we speak to access Ambassador Joseph Yuman Boakai's plan for Liberia?
Mr. Sieh, I've been very clear on the record. I told you straight up where we are. Ambassador Boakai contested in 2017. We are in the process of developing a website like any other political institution will do. Given all that is happening out there, we've made it very clear that first and foremost, Ambassador Boakai will not run for president without presenting to the Liberian people a plan. And you guys will have access, because whatever we ran on in 2017, there could be modification that we must want to make. So I assure you on that give us the time. You definitely will see it on our website. We're not just going to have a plan. We will have a website, and I can assure you today on this platform, a website where all Liberians will be able to click.
Thank you.
Go there and we'll read everything in detail on every sector. So that's something I've told you. Just give us some time on that.
Thank you. And Mr. Lobbo, it is your turn to ask Mr. Yartoe 2 questions.
Okay, great. Mr. Yartoe, you've already started a conversation here today about Mr. Cummings' experience in government and that of the private sector. Mr. Yartoe, what is your understanding the difference between the public sector and the private sector? And can you tell the Liberians, of the 2 sectors, which one regulates the other one? That's my first question. Then I will go to my second question if you answer that.
No, ask your next question, Josh.
My next question, Mr. Yartoe. Okay, on my second question, you talk about Mr. Cummings' plan for the economy. Can you state for the Liberian people, in the order of priority, how will Mr. Cummings diversify the Liberian economy, and what are those areas, those line items in the budget he intends to look on expanding our revenue base, saying he has proposed to grow the revenue from 500 million, our budget from 500 million to 1 billion?
Thank you for that question. As you all know, the governments are there because they are the regulators of all economic activities.
Mister, I can hear you.
We can hear him.
Okay.
You may not hear. You can hear me? You can hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, that the government is there to regulate all economic activities and all activities within that country. So yes, but in the history of Liberia, we have seen that like everywhere else, the government is not there as the panacea for all of the economic problems to fulfill them. The government is there to create an environment, an enabling environment. But you go to the corporate and to government and how they are similar. I am saying to you that in Liberia today, that for 174 years, nothing has worked. That's why we remain one of the poorest nations on the face of the earth. The kind of experience you talk about is not experience that we're looking for. It's like when Obama said to Hillary Clinton, she's the most experienced, but it's not the kind of experience we want. The kind of experience we want is a guy when you talk about we attracted 16 billion of foreign direct investment. Understand, Somebody got to understand this investment. The same attraction you talk about, we're not benefiting today because 64 of the 68 were absolutely bogus. They did not benefit us in any capacity, but yet still we tie up the future of our children on those concessions. So we are saying to you today that the government, the knowledge you bring from corporate America, where you negotiate deals, where you know how money works and how deal works is what we need today. A guy who can sit in front of Mattel Steel and give us the best deal. A guy who can sit in front of the APM terminal and give us the best deal. A guy who can sit in front of China Union and not a guy who can just make a speech to the Chinese, but a guy who actually has sat and negotiated deals.
Go to the next question, Mr. Yartoe, because of time.
George's next question was that how will Mr. Cummings grow the 500 million budget to the 1 billion budget he talked about?
Cummings has always said that the conditions we are in is so severe that if we expect to do everything at once, we will not. Let's go to the economy. We're talking about the budget right now is around $550 million. I think the first thing that a Cummings-led administration would do, and only Cummings can do it, is how do you Liberianize the economy? Remember now, the government is the largest procurer of services and goods and services. But we know that under the current administration and under Boakai's rule, that Liberians were not part. They have always been spectators in their own economy. I think what Cummings would do, and because he was never part of that system, he will prioritize Liberians owning the economy through goods and services. The first thing you have to do is expand the economy by actually getting Liberians involved. Cutting the red tapes to register a business. The government now employs around about 66 to 70,000 people. It is not sufficient. Most of our people need it. So you got to go to the economy. You got to create the enabling environment so that the small can come in. And
Thank you,
Mr. Yartoe, we can end up as to how Mr. Cummings will grow the budget. That was
what I'm saying. If you create a private sector investment, if you create the small businesses, the taxes to pay is the what? Remember now, most of $1 million is due to taxes collected.
And Mr. Yartoe, how do you create them?
But
what process do you put into place? What program do you put into place to create them?
Okay, I said the first thing you do, you cut the red tape. You make it friendlier for the guy that you and I will have a little bit of capital to go and invest in Liberia.
All right, thank you, sir.
Where we have the regulations are cut. So by implementing most of the regulations, you can create jobs through that.
Thank you, Mr. Yartoe. You now can ask your 2 questions for Mr. Lobbo.
The first question is, George, when Ambassador Boakai left the dual government all the way up to 2005, that gap of about 20 years, tell me the experiences he gathered through the agriculture and through the LPMC model. Tell me, what did he do in those interim, in his own personal life, that created employment or set a model for a county like Lofa or Bumi, where he directly lived one time or the other? That would be my first question to you. My second question is, we've always accused the government that if you said that we were squandered, what opportunity that they squandered? According to Boakai's own words, they squandered opportunity. That those squandered opportunity, how are they affecting us today? And why should we believe that will be any different?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Yartoe. Mr. Lobbo.
Thank you very much for those questions. Since he could not answer mine, I will do him a favor and answer his questions. Mr. Yartoe, it is true when former Vice President Boakai, when he left government, as you all know, Ambassador Boakai had trips. He traveled. He was in the States. He was back and forth in Liberia, engaged with his private life. He has always done one thing every time he has not been in government, Mr. Toe, just for your understanding, like he is doing right now. I know many Liberians may not know The former vice president currently owns a 62 acres farm in Bapolu County, where he has employees there, but he's not the guy who is talking. Again, while he was out, since you asked about the agricultural sector, go to Lofa, former vice president Boakai had a farm there. What has former vice president Boakai done since he left government recently? He purchased 1,200 acres of land in Bomi that he gave to Liberian people in Bomi. They can go there, make farms for themselves, plant whatever they want to, sell those produce. It's just that Ambassador Boakai is not a guy who is going to be out there and want people to know about those things, because for him, his life is about public service, and for him doing what is right and giving back to his country, he don't see it as a need for him to score political points or to gain public recognition. When a man travels to America and get donated goods, donated commodities he takes to Liberia, then we should award him with the nation's highest award. That is not the business he's into. But again, I will say to you, Mr. Toe, given his background in agriculture, every time he has been out of government, he has always made it his private to investing in having farm. Former Vice President told you the other time, I have properties, I have investments around the country, and I think that's what he has done. On the issue of the opportunities, he said we squander. I think what the Liberian people love about Ambassador Boakai is a man who is honest to his people. Is a man who can look them in the eyes and say, listen, this thing here, I didn't do it right. This thing, my government didn't do it right, but we can do better. And when we talk in terms of squandering opportunity, Mr. Toe, we want to be honest to the Liberian people. We strongly believe, for example, we went to China and got an agreement with the Chinese government to renovate for us SKD. What happened? We allowed the Chinese government to be the one to hire the contractor. We did not follow up. We did not investigate. We did not follow up. What type of investments were made? What all was done with that $17 million? All the Unity Party government did was, because the Chinese government agreed that we'll renovate SKD, so we went on what happened. And they came there, they renovated SKD up to West End. So some of those opportunities, it is looking at 17 million and say, hold on 1 second. If you're going to bring this company, is it possible for us to get a different company that we could spend at least 15 or 14 million, where we could take $3 million and invest it into healthcare? So those were opportunities we missed out on. For example, again, Mr. Toe, let me say this to you. When we went to America in 2014, during the heat of Ebola, and we got the U.S. government to give us 25 million, but we allowed the U.S. government to send U.S. troops to Liberia. Do you know the cost for those troops? Half of that money went behind their being in the country. So those were opportunities we missed, because you know what? As a government, we should have said, you know what? We can't allow you to control the funds you're donating to us. We have to supervise and make sure that the implementations of those funds go according to what we want. Because I will tell you, Mr. Toe, is it true we didn't get dollar on a dollar? I strongly believe so. And he's right. Those were opportunities we missed. But moving forward, we're not going to allow that. We're not going to allow no one to say, we gave Liberia $20 million, but we're going to sell our own engineers. No, we're not going to do that. If you give us $20 million, we have to be able to say as a government, if you bring in somebody here, this is how much you must pay that person for our money. So those were opportunities we missed. Not only that, I want to be honest to the Liberian people here today, because for us, is telling the truth. Let me finish on this point. For example, the executive mansion, Mr. Toe, I have a problem with it. Many Unity Party partisans. Imagine how much money it cost us. We decided to renovate the mansion. We gave a contract to a company. The company came and looted the mansion and left more destruction than the state in which they made it. Those were opportunities we missed. So we have to be honest to the Liberian people. Everything was not rosy. There were areas of financial mismanagement that we need to hold people accountable for. So yes, those were the opportunities he's talking about. And I'm glad that I support a man who is honest to his people and can take responsibility. Not a man who, when he's given the chance to lead an organization and something happened under his watch, he does not own up to it and runs around to make excuses. That's why I support Ambassador Boakai.
Thank you, George. At this time, we're going to quickly take 3 or 4 calls. And callers, if you have the opportunity, you have just a minute to make your point quickly, because we have post-debate analysis. All the things we're doing, we're going to bring in our analysts to do an analysis. So we'll take the first caller. Caller, quickly, your name and where you're calling from. Hello, caller, your name and where you calling from?
Hello.
Yes.
Yeah. I got a question for
Go ahead, sir.
Yartoe. Okay, my question here is, you say you want to stop corruption. How can you stop corruption if you surround yourself with a lot of corrupt people then? For example, if a man got elected for local senator, the Supreme Court accused him for stealing huge amount of money. For Cummings and the CPP, the charity there. Yeah, that's how you're going to stop corruption.
Thank you. What's your name again?
My name is Solomon Brown. I'm calling from Lobbo, Kentucky.
Thank you, Solomon. Let's go to the second caller here. Caller, your name and where you calling from quickly.
My name is Ernest, and I'm calling from Huntsville, Alabama. I have just two questions. I hear Mr. Lobbo, he's made his comment a couple of times that Cummings was in a structured environment. So since Mr. Lobbo has lived in America for more than 10 years, how far has he gone in his structured environment in work? Is he like a CEO now? If it's that easy to just acquire that level of managerial position. Then to the Cummings people, which I will admit I probably lean towards, but sometimes it's good for them to accept their mistakes. That even if it was not nefarious, there were some lapses in some of the framework documents. Then I also want to ask Mr. Lobbo if the Unity Party is still if CPP is still an organization, because I read one of his posts that said that there's no framework document, so there can be no collaboration, nothing binding. So I want to ask if Mr. Boakai is saying the CPP is a non-binding organization according to one of his posts.
Thank you. Let me take the second to the last caller. Caller, your name and where you calling from. Be very brief.
Well, this is Cyrus calling from Minneapolis.
Go ahead, Cyrus.
Hello?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I thought mine is not a question, just a comment. I mean, I listened to the debate between Chairman Yartoe and George Lobbo. You see, Lobbo continues to sell one of the biggest myths, and I keep hearing this from Unity Partisans, that Joseph Boakai working in an unstructured environment and Cummings from a structured environment, and the Lobbo keep talking about regulation. The thing is, government in the private sector, they work in the symbiotic relationship. That's why these days, when you want to grow an economy, it gets called public-private partnership. Everywhere in the world, the private sector is the engine for growth. For the fact that the government regulates policy, it doesn't mean that you got a one-sided operation. Just Lobbo, government, corporate is more structured. When they say a multinational corporation, they engage in more politics than a single government. Maybe you don't understand that. First of all, the reason you create laws were meant to guarantee success. When you go to the public sector, you have procurement laws, you have constitution, you have check and balance. The Chairman Yartoe registered. The only difference is the expectation and the standard is higher in corporate than in government. Government have a systemic structure from top to bottom.
Thank you, Cyrus.
About the budget, one is from the central bank, they have their own rules and regulations. So there's myth that because Cummings work in the structured environment, so it means he cannot succeed in the public. That's a lie.
Thank you, Cyrus.
You cannot work in corporate and don't be involved in the politics.
Thank you. Thank you, Cyrus. Let me take the last caller. Caller, your name quickly. We have our analysts. They're going to be analyzing the debate tonight, so we want to have more time. Go ahead.
Yeah, this is Dr. Kula calling from Atlanta, Georgia. My question to Yartoe, I need you to explain to the Liberian people what FBI is, because it seems like you guys are confused with FBI when you keep saying they give us $16 billion. So explain what you understand by FBI. And secondly, why did Cummings not allow a nomination from the floor since he believes in democracy? Why did he sit there and allow that kind of undemocratic process to go on where he was the only nominee, he was the only one being voted for, and yet they had things so structured as if they were in some third world country with a dictatorship.
Thank you, Dr. Kula.
Why do you guys not have a website? And finally, are you guys going to keep pushing this block voting thing? Those are my questions.
Thank you. Joe Moyo, you have 30 seconds, and Ali, you have 30 seconds. Both of you should divide in 1 minute. Joe, go ahead.
Thanks, Mr. God. Thanks for having me. So first of all, I would like to register. And we all as Liberians should thank Honorable Boakai for his service to the country. He's a family man. He's done a pretty good job.
Do you have a question, Joe? Do you have a question?
It's not the time to bring somebody from the status quo like Ambassador Boakai. So that's Ambassador Boakai comes from, you and I, we all know that he comes from a broken system. He hasn't shown any sort of leadership as leader of the CPP. He has people within his group insulting Mr. Cummings. He doesn't say anything. And you look at what he did during the 2017 elections. They were insulting his president, President Sieh. He kept quiet.
Thank you.
That doesn't show leadership.
Thank you, Joe.
Not taking over their silence.
Thank you, Joe.
He's doing again. Very, very poor leadership.
Thank you. Mr. Aliyu Kamara, 30 seconds.
Yes, sir. No problem. I'll take the 30 seconds. Enough fair. But, I just wanted to erect certain checkpoint here quick. Mr. Yartoe, thank you so much for being on. I just wanted to bring something to your attention. Foreign direct investment is ABC thing that you should know by now. It's projection. It doesn't mean, Mr. Yartoe, that physical 16 billion were given to Ellie. Understand that. The people you put in the way that you can understand it because it confuses me sometimes. The people UNP that they were talking about that the kind of country that they were paying you an employee, it never went through the finance ministry. The money went through the UNP road system. Ellie Johnson did not take that money. I want to clarify this. When you say the vice president was taking over all the chief and the zones in the country, that's not how Liberia works. I don't know what country you're talking about. The internal affairs minister is the one who owes the people, not the vice president.
Thank you.
Ansony Sieh. You know, 1 minute, in 1 second.
Ansony, not debating.
You're asking John Lobbo about the educational sector, all of this sector. Let me tell you, at the University of Liberia, they get president there. I want to John to make that play run.
Thank you.
And the education ministry, they got minister there. You know who appointed all the people? The president. The people are answerable to the president, not the vice president. How they kind of thing hard to understand, my people.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Well, those are the questions. Mr. Duopo, welcome. Mr. Duopu, okay, put yourself up a little bit because you are down. We want to see a little bit.
Want to see that 6-pack.
And then Mr. Binako, this is our analyst. We want to say welcome to Focus.
Is it all right?
Debate night. Move up a little bit. All right.
Yeah, it's all right, Mr. Gopu.
Thank you.
It's all right, Mr. Gopu. Okay.
Mr.
So
Sieh,
we want to say welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for the hospitality.
Mm-hmm.
So you listen to all the calls. We can take all the calls. You can respond to everything. But quickly, Mr. Lobbo, you have 2 minutes, and Mr. Yartoe 2 minutes to respond to the call quickly.
Yeah, go ahead, George.
Okay, so I just want to respond to Ernest, who asked about how high have I gone in the corporates in my structured environment. Ernest, I have not stayed in one company for more than 5 years. One good thing I've done in America is I've worked in different areas. I've worked in distribution, in supply chain, and go back to corporate. So that's how I've worked. Okay, so consistency. The longer you stay in one industry, that's how you move up, because most companies will promote from within. Now, let me go to this issue. Or someone brought a question of what are the United Parties stay in the CPP. Again, let me say this to my fellow Liberians. As a Liberian, I am a talk show host. As you can see, I am the host of the Drive Informative Talk Show. Regardless of my affiliation of a political party, I have my right to express my own opinion on what I think and what I feel. At the end of the day, it's up to the Unity Party to make a decision on what they want to do. Again, I was asking a question like any other talk show who will ask, because if the CPP framework document, it is believed to have been altered, and now it is annexed, that means the CPP leadership could request that document. So I asked a question. Do we have any legal document that now bind us together? Because the fact of the matter, Benedict Ure said that document was nefariously submitted. So that is what I was referring to. And the last, let me speak to Saros, who talked about government and the corporate is the same. President Monk, I'm sorry to say, I'm not going to go back and forth on those issues, because the fundamental difference that people continue to forget, the goal of any business is to maximize profit. The government does not maximize profit. The government provides services to its people. So the argument here is finished on that basis, and that is what I would say on it. Or Baton Kula, last question real quick on Baton Kula point. Are we going to push black voting? The Unity Party have made it very clear that black voting is the way they want to go. And again, I will say this. Now that we know that there were alterations made, who knows if the document is brought back and there needs to be amendment made to the CPP document. I don't know. If I was the Unity Party, I would definitely want to make sure that black voting is in it as a way forward. That is going to be part of the negotiation. So that's what I think. But UP, yes, we are strong. We are firm on black voting. We remain on that. That's our position on that.
Thank you, Mr. Yartoe.
You know what, George is always taking the good and leaving the bad to hang out there. Black voting was never envisioned in any of the drafts.
Are you answering my question?
While I am not a CPP president, I would say that Cummings has said it's a collaboration. The question that was posed to me from one of the callers about the corruption from UP accusation, I don't think that corruption comes to Cummings. UP must answer the Boakai issue. He was accused. He was found guilty. It is UP's responsibility. I am not a CPP president, so they will have to answer that question to people. They will have to show the distinction of them versus George Weah. It's as simple as that. We'd never say there was 16 billion given to Ellie. They said that according to George Lobbo, they attracted 16 billion in foreign direct investment. He said they attracted. So I went for 14. He said 16. But we're saying all this attraction, and where you, George Lobbo, you talk about the squandering of gifts. You didn't squander no gifts. The U.S. government helped with 25 million for Ebola. They said because we didn't have the expertise, they will send their own people. Okay? Squandering we talk about is when you sign 68 concessions and you didn't. You rallied 17 senators to come to support you for a campaign. But you couldn't rally those same 17 senators to come and support you to pass a deal on the APN terminal that was detrimental to the Liberian economy. Is still detrimental to us. That is what we call squandering. Squandering is when they gave you something and you didn't work on it. I'm saying to you that the direct investment we're talking about is something that was given to us, and you squandered that opportunity because those people were supposed to pay taxes to government. That's how the budget went from 80 million on a tiller time, and it came to 500 or 600 million. Is because those companies pay taxes to government for the concessions that you sign. Those concessions pay fees. Those fees are the ones that keep the government afloat. The environment you created is the one that gave us. That's what we're saying about. And only Cummings who knows the market, only Cummings who knows the economy can solve those problems. Is that somebody who start there and you will not take blame for everything that went by, but you only take blame for everything that went good. And when you're in a referee, you're in a game, and your announcement, you don't blow your whistle for 90 minutes, but then the 90th minute you want to be a referee. You can't be a referee announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Yartoe. Yeah. Mr. Duopo, I see that you have two devices. If you prefer both, then you have to mute one from your end.
Yeah.
Or else there will be feedback. I think you should decide to use one instead of both.
You are connected twice.
Yeah, you connected from the computer and from your phone. Which one do you wish to use? Okay, then we'll bring you in. Yeah, let's stick to the computer. Yeah. Can you hear us?
Yeah.
All right.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you loud and clear. Thank you very much.
Just move on the side so you are leaning one side.
Yeah. Sir.
No, your body, not the camera. The camera is fine.
The camera fine?
Yeah, the camera is fine.
All right.
You
look like the Lord Samura Machel tonight.
I look just like my late dad. Sometimes it's very scary.
All right. Again, folks in cyberspace, you are watching Focus on Liberia debate between Mr. Josh Preston Lobbo debating for Team JMB and Mr. Emmanuel Yartoe debating for Team ABC for the CPP candidacy comes 2023. 3. Both gentlemen made their case, each for their respective candidates. We have Mr. Dwopo and also Tevi, who joined us to do post-debate analysis. Dennis, how do we start this? Do we start with ladies and gentlemen? Of course, we start with ladies and gentlemen. Tevinako, again, we can't express how appreciative we are having you to do this post-debate analysis. You're listening to the gentlemen making the case for each of their candidates. It's now your time for you to give your first impression and also go into the summation that they gave to Liberians tonight. What your take?
Are we going to be on, or I thought we were going to leave?
No, you have to be here, because after then you will give your closing.
Oh, y'all want us to be here? Oh, okay. I thought we were going to leave.
No.
So that.
Don't leave.
So Tevina can't be looking at me and say anything bad to me because.
With a straight face, you know.
Sure, myself.
I mean, say, Yartoe, good to see you.
How you doing, dear?
You know, I forgot I had to do this, and I was busy writing on the comment section. Y'all know my hand can be easy to write. So I feel guilty because somehow I think I'm already biased or compromised because I corrected Yartoe once. I corrected Joe and Lobbo once in the comment section. But I mean, if you guys want me to say something, just general, analysis. I don't
Go ahead and express your general feel about it. We are all Liberians. Let's talk.
Okay.
JMB said we are talking people, so let's talk.
Yeah.
I made some notes here. Wait, let me change my glasses. Let me read so I can see better. Okay, so I had some notes here. Okay, so both of them, talk. I mean, try to set a candidate. I think there's some up and down to both sides. Let me start with Judge. I mean, he talks about Ambassador Boakai, all the things he's done in the past. What I was hoping to hear was the most recent, as in, the last 12 years. But what I did hear over and over was, when he was, I think, LPMC or LPRSC and all of that, I wish you would list a lot more because that's the most recent. And so it resonated with people more and more. But it's not bad to bring the other things, but I think bring in some of the recent ones. So Mr. Yartoe, let me see notes I have for him. So Mr. Yartoe seems, he talked too about, Mr. Cummings' plan for Liberia, different things he will do. And I think I commented about resending the APM terminal deal. And I was like, he said he's going to resend it right away. And I commented, I was just like, if the people are not defaulting on the contract, why are you going to resend it? You'll probably be expecting a lawsuit from that, and they will win GOL, on that. But that was just my thought on that. But generally, I'll be very honest. I think both sides. Let me talk about the plan. Because I think both of your question, each other, I think Dennis' question, both of you guys about the plan, your plan, if it listed somewhere. I think both parties, you guys are the forerunners, and both of you don't even have your plans on your website because, and that's something I think you need to do. We do a lot of talking, but people like to see. For me, I like to match the talk with the words, so things have to be layered. I know I asked Mr. Cummings that before on another platform. He did say he had on the brochure and they were going to update the website, so I know it's coming. George, it seems I know yours coming. So, but it's better for you to make it public, on the website, on your Facebook group page and stuff like that. Let people, so we can hold you accountable when you're kind of power, because that's what I like to do. So just make that public. But as far as leadership, both of you are talking about different styles of leadership. Mr. Cummings have, of course, track record of leading private sector, and Ambassador Boakai too has a track record of leading in the public sector. But I think both got good things to bring to the table because, obviously we know in public service, it's less effective, less productive because it's public, and the private sector is more, more effective because it's profit driven and things like that. So I think more productive, if I would say. But again, public sector, they serve public, so it's different. In private sector, the stakeholders are, people, that whoever they are, the individuals pretty much, or, whoever else. But so it's different. But I think the combination of leadership, I think it's a good combination. If both of them can work together, I think at the end of the day, it's a good combination, and I think it will benefit the country, because both of, where one is weak, the other one can build from there, and together they can make a strong team. Generally, I think that's all I have to say. No, let me speak to the CPP one. As far as leadership with the CPP, I think there's just a lot of blame to go around. Every one of them, including Mr. Cummings, every one of them. I don't think they started, they planned the CPP as well as led the CPP correctly. And that's why we have all this mess, all this noise. It was not structured using Mr. Cummings' years of experience of leading in the West. It wasn't structured or managed as far as Mr. Boakai's many years of leading, in Liberia or whatever it is, as well as the other leaders. So there are a lot of takeaways from that, but hopefully they will have a lot of lessons learned, including, putting this to a stop, because we're exhausted. If I can leave for
Intervenant, I have a question for you. Having listened to them, because the audience looking for answers, we asking them questions, and the audience expectation is, okay, they will provide the answers to the questions. Having listened to both gentlemen, which one of them, or based on what you listened to, which one of them were more direct in giving us the answers that we're asking? Who you think was understanding the answers for the most part? Who answers the questions for the most part, and with specific details?
I don't think there's one person that did well over the other. I think it depends on the question. One did well over the other. There was not one person that led in a specific direction. There was some questions. George was spot on. He could bring the details, and there were some things that Mr. Yartoe just brushed over. Talk about it back to school and how they would create jobs and stuff like that. I don't think it was very detailed about those things. So I think it just depends on the question. I wouldn't say one person did well the other, quite honestly.
All right.
I wouldn't, and I wouldn't. I'm not the best judge tonight, obviously.
No, you are great. Thank you so much.
Okay.
I want to ask the question, Joe.
Let Mr. Duopo come in.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, you can come. Mr. Duopo, again, we want to see your face a little bit more. So if you can, all right. Yeah.
You can see me now?
Yeah.
The man married to crew woman and having a fail. We'll file a lawsuit.
Well, I'm honored again to be on your platform, and it's always a privilege. I see it as a privilege. You guys do a fine and phenomenal job. These kind of discourses try to help, educate, try to broaden the scope of understanding in these, very tense political environment that our country is faced with, And as a student of political science, I don't have any partisan beef in this thing. I come with that notion, and in a branch of political science that I've always intrigued me is comparative political studies. As a comparativist, one of the crux of that branch of political science, what it seeks to do is to always kind of juxtapose, things that you're trying to compare. Right now we are comparing two, persons with the same political aspiration in what we're supposed to think is a collaboration. Why should I come from two different political parties? They are in a political marriage. So it's like, a husband and wife, you come from two different worlds. You come together, bringing all your frailties, all your expectations, everything you come in that marriage with. And sometimes, it's like one person is either making the marriage to work, or another person is not giving their full, their full investment into it. So when we do this kind of analysis in a kind of comparative, framework, we always like to put it side by side. And one thing in this kind of discussion, we always look at the counterfactual, proposition, because one person is saying this about his candidate, and another person is saying one thing about their candidate, but the goal is to make the public believe that they are saying the right thing, they are in the right frame of mind, that candidate is the best candidate for the job. So in a counterfactual analysis, what we do is to extrapolate. And that's why when I say we, me and Telvi or Telvina,
either one.
Telvi are trying to do as, the analysts, in the post-debate, analytical framework. That's what we are trying to do. We are trying to extrapolate what both gentlemen said, about the candidates. So what I would say is that these are two distinct persons, in the political world. One has a track record of public service over 40 years. And for full disclosure, Mr. Boakai and my father were colleagues in the cabinet in the 80s. My father was Minister of Labor and he was Minister of Agriculture. So most times they travel together. I've been on 1 or 2 trips with them, to Switzerland and Germany. So, but that's aside from the relationship. One of the candidates has this wealth of public service, that we have to acknowledge. It comes with time, it comes with experience, understanding of the political landscape of the country.
Let me say this. We want you to evaluate.
I'm getting there. In this kind of analysis, you don't just, you lay the foundational framework, before you try to delve into the nitty-gritty of the discussion. But in terms of actually evaluating, I think both gentlemen came out good. I'm not going to give any scores here per se, but we're looking at what they said, and one of the things that Lobbo struck was Mr. Boakai's years of experience, in the public service, being head of a public corporation, being a minister of government, and being vice president. And Mr. Yartoe talked about Mr. Cummings' his years of an experience in the public service, in the private sector, working for Coca-Cola from Nigeria, South Africa to Atlanta, But those are 2 different tracks, in leadership, the public and the private. But even the private service, the private sector, you are in a leadership role. You have shareholders, you have consumers, like in Mr. Cummings' case, you work for Coca-Cola, it's a consumer-driven, sector of the economy. And in Mr. Boakai's role, his shareholders, or the people who he works for are the public, and there are expectations in those 2 words. And if you're not functioning, there is a place of accounting. You either get fired or you don't get reelected. I'm not saying Mr. Cummings got fired. I think he retired and stuff like that. But Mr. Boakai sought for the presidency, and in that process, he was not given another chance. He was not given the job, so he did not get elected. So, and Mr. Yartoe struck a good point that, hey, Mr. Boakai's experience, we acknowledge that. But in this day and age, that's not the experience Liberian people want. That really struck, it really caught me, I really paid keen attention to what he said about, Mr. Boakai in that light, that his experience, why it's true that he has all these years of experience, over 40 years, that is not the experience the Liberian people want at that point in time. And Mr. Cummings is a fresh, new, he brings a fresh perspective to the politics. He's new, he's refreshing. People look to him like giving you a second chance and giving you a second look. That's kind of refreshing to me, So, and it went on to the whole question of, and Mr. Yartoe again brought another point that I think really raised a red flag about the concessions that were signed in the alien government. Let's be factual here. Mr. Boakai, he cannot divorce himself from the alien administration. He was vice president. He was a second in command. He was both a member of the executive and also the administrator of the legislature. So everything that was done legislatively in terms of regular concessions and all that stuff, he has a fingerprint on those documents. So we can't ignore that fact. Then, you know, they went about talking about, I think you guys raised the question about the Southeast and how Mr. Boakai has just ignored the Southeast. That's a very important point. You know, that I think it was Dennis who raised that point. The Southeast is about, let's say 12 to 15% of the Liberian population. Why is sure they are very small counties and the population is very sparse. But that, if you combine that, that is a very good swath of the population. And for Mr. Boakai, who has been vice president for 12 years, I'm not sure he ever went on a tour by himself as vice president in those 12 years. You know, that's something that people have, it's been lingering in people's mind. Has he just waved the Southeast to, you know, George Weah? Is he just concerned about Lofa and people of his own ethnic stock? Those are things that Liberians pay key attention to. You know, as you know, observers, keen observer of the politics of the day, we pay keen attention to that kind of dynamics. You know, are you just catering to people of your own ethnic, you know, background? Is that just a Lofa vote you want, or towards Bone County? So those are important things. You know, if you look at the whole electoral map and you do the analytics, you know, is data driven. If you look at that, the last elections, we had the Southeast over 90% going to George Weah. What are you going to do about that? We got Bassa. Now we don't have Bromsky. Even when Bromsky was alive, George Weah won Bassa. So now Bromsky is not even there. You know, there's, you know, I mean, he's not even on the ballot to even give the people of Bassa a second, you know, I mean, a second fiddle. So are you saying that even Bassa, that is so big, Nimba, of all places, a vote-rich county, there's no outreach there, you waive that? Magibi, because Magibi is so strategic, because Magibi kind of, there are several counties that border Magibi, you know? So Magibi is very strategic, because it's not just Magibi. It has connection with Bassa, Monserrato. It has connection with even, you know, Bong. And coming to Bong and Lofa, you know that Jewel Howard is there. You know, she has connection and some relationship with Bong and Lofa. So those are kind of the calculations that the CPP as a political entity needs to be looking at. And people like Lobbo and Yartoe, you know, the technicians who will be working on those analytics, they need to pay key attention to those things. You know, right now, I think the framework document has taken over their whole, you know, I mean, their energy, he has sapped their energy.
Right. And that's what we're trying to change tonight.
There are a lot of, you know, I mean, hard feelings and, you know, I mean, they need to start thinking about those things. They need to start looking at post-framework document and see how they can plot their own, you know, map towards an electoral victory. So, you know, and one thing that Mr. Lobbo tried to do in the discussion is to just oversimplify the whole governance architecture under the Boakai, Ellen Boakai administration. He always comes across, oh, you know, this is a simple matter. Every time you guys ask questions, he says, oh, there's a very simple matter. You know, we asked about Boakai's his role as managing director of LPMC or Minister of Agriculture. He said there were $50 million that Boakai left at the LPMC. I don't know his source, but you know, that's something that can be researched. You know, he said, I mean, the understanding the problem, you know, and understanding the problem, Boakai understands the problem, like he says, Mr. Lobbo. But then, how do you solve the problem that you understand? What are the mechanisms in solving those problems? You can come with your 40 years of understanding the Liberian problem, but it's a web, it's a matrix that you have to have answers, solutions in solving those vexing problems of our national life. They are vexing national issues that Mr. Boakai needs to start telling people why should he understands those problems. How is he going to fix those problems? You know, I mean, so he has never, and Mr. Lobbo, you know, he never told us how Boakai is going to fix those problems. He just said Boakai understands the problem. And Mr. Yartoe, but in his own, you know.
Mr. Lobbo, George talked about art. which is
let him conclude, Mr. Sieh.
Okay.
So I think Yartoe was hammering home, although, I mean, he's not the most verbose, animated like, Lobbo is. I mean, that's the different styles. But Yartoe was hammering home how Cummings, in his own wisdom, is seeking to fix those problems that he thinks Liberia has underwent or is still undergoing as a nation state. Bringing solutions to the problem. And another thing I want to just pick up on is
just 30 seconds we can conclude that.
To just conclude, when it came to the gender issue, I don't think Mr. Lobbo did his boss any good. He couldn't think about, the Mo Alis, about the Co-Bangalus of the world, the guys who in the inner cycle of Mr. Boakai are all men. And he couldn't just come to him because I think Dennis even pressed him. So you want to know the guys, right? It took him some time. Maybe somebody texted him the president's name, and he talked about some lady who controls the finances and all that. And we see that Cummings has been making rural revisits. He has gone to the rural areas. He has tried to identify himself. He has tried to ingratiate himself with the Liberian populace. So. And the last thing I want to stress in this little summary is that, and you guys asked about the 3 planks of their approach to resolving the healthcare, agriculture, and rule of law. And both of them didn't submit any policy document, or they didn't reference any policy document that Liberian people can go to and read. I mean, how can you be a political leader like there's a new title now, and you don't have anything written down, any policy document that people can reference, people can critique, and at least find comfort? So look, this is a new approach. This is a new leadership mantra that we can base our our election, our whole electioneering on. So I mean, those are some of the things that really caught my attention. So maybe as the discussion, evolves, I will have more to say.
Thank you so much, Mr. Dupu. Mr. Sieh, you were leading this thing. Go ahead.
Yeah, so Mr. Dupu has given, his analysis. Tevina did. We will now go back to the debaters, to accept the observation made by our post-debate analyst. And then after that, we'll take their parting statement. Let's start with you, Mr. Lobbo. You're listening to the 2 analysts. They gave their observation. What's your response?
Let me say thanks to Telvina and thanks to Mr. Dupu. And I just want to say very clear here, thanks to those who call as well. Again, for me, this kind of conversation, for me, is not about scoring political points. The Liberian people listen to us here tonight, and I think they will be their own judge. They know exactly the questions were asked, and I'm pretty sure they listen to us, and they will have to make a decision on the issue of substance, facts, and analyzing and providing answers to the question. The Liberian audience will have to do themselves a favor. This is why I continue to say to all Liberians, there are going to be people out there, no matter what Ambassador Boakai says or do. There are people, for whatever reason, will have their own intention, will have their own understanding, and their own way of presenting the facts. It is going to be up to the Liberian people who are sitting at home, whose children are at home, whose children are without food, those people without jobs. So to the panelists, I want to say you did your best, and I wish you guys nothing but I want to say I respect that, and I hopefully will take some of the cues from you guys' analysis, and we'll add to that. But again, like I said, I am who I am, and I will continue to do what I do, and it will always be this George Lobbo. So the Liberian people know me very well, and they will make a determination for themselves.
Thank you.
George, I know you gotta go. Don't go. Take 5 seconds. I gotta ask you, Mr. Yolopo, a question.
Yeah. Okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah, let Yartoe go ahead first.
I'm very happy because we are at the precipice of real change. From 2017 to 2020, the Liberian people say they want to change. And at the end of the first term of the president will be in 2023, we got to ask ourselves, who among the two guys will give us the best chance to advance the cause of prosperity? George always talk about foreign direct investment. I don't understand it. And he said these people brought in 15 billion. These are the 68 concessions we are talking about. That Boakai not only participated in the negotiation through the executive, but he also supervised the Senate, and they wrongfully signed away the future of our children. It's because the world has changed. The kind of experiences you had in the 70s that you couldn't use as a private sector person. Mind you now, Boakai has a farm in Bapulu. Nobody knows what kind of farm that is, how many people are employed. He has a farm in Lofa. Nobody knows was a cocoa farm or coffee farm. We are saying that when you get to the table of these FDI investments, and folks want to think I don't understand what FDI is, that somebody who actually has been in the private sector. Understand, these are private companies that are coming to exploit your resources in the public sector. These are guys who are taking share like Mattel, that we end up being in the container that you go to Nima today, they're extracting every wealth that Ambassador Boakai signed away through those concessions. And George wants us to believe that he squandered the opportunity, but only the ones that when the American came to assist you with healthcare, they say we got to bring our own people because they understand how to treat Ebola. Or those are the squandering, not the FDI he's talking about. We're saying Cummings' expertise is what we want today and what we need today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you guys want to give him a chance to respond to the analyst? Because I think he was ending something. He didn't respond to them.
No, he finished. That's his response.
Oh, he responded to the analyst.
Davina, you wanted to say something?
No, I wanted to ask Josh and Mr. Yartoe, when is CPP signing the global ceasefire agreement? Is that something coming up soon? I mean, when did we call this quit? I mean, it's just ongoing brewing fire. I mean,
all right. Davina, that's another territory.
Oh, you didn't answer. 2 of them. 5 seconds.
It is. Cummings has spoken to that already. That under his rule, the CPP was livelier, was active. We saw that the CPP performed very well in terms of the elections.
No, Mr. Yartoe, you missed my point.
I said the CPP.
But Mr. Yartoe presented the question again. Then you go ahead.
I'm talking about all that noise. Let me put it like bring this. All that noise.
The noise ended. An accusation was made, and nobody, including George Lobbo, can say this is what is different. The lawyers have written a letter and they have said unequivocally that we changed the structure of the document. The structure of the document.
Well, yes, they you on Facebook and we tired.
Facebook,
right. And Tabina, that's why we wanted. That's why we brought the debate so that we can get rid of the.
Yeah, that's why we try to get away from this framework thing.
Right, because the reason they are making the noise about framework document because they don't have issues to discuss. So we are bringing the issues to the debate.
But I think it creates distrust in the political system.
Okay, so let me respond since Yartoe had a chance to respond on this issue. Here's what I would say. Go ahead.
Mesfi was talking. Mesfi and your.
I mean, what Tavina was trying to drive at the CPP in the framework document and all this holobalo, I think it just create distrust in the political system. People depend on you guys, and they are supporters. They are, although they are fierce, because politics itself is about shared values. About you coming into an agreement. There has to be some shared values, and people not seeing it in the CPP. I think the overriding thing that the CPP has is the detriment of George Weah, and that should be more than that. Because you're talking about not just election, but you're talking about governance. Governance is more than just having election and winning election.
Thank you, sir.
So I just want to add that maybe
Right. No, thank you. We just don't want to go back to this 1 month of chaos they put us through about this framework document.
But you take notes and take it back to your leaders.
So no, let me say something on this issue real quick. I think when we brag about a man who wants to bring structure to Liberia, who work in a structured environment, I think that would have been seen in the CPP. I'm pretty sure all Liberians know that Mr. Cummings could never have submitted any legal document with a signature page from an old document that have been altered. That itself is fraud.
Let me just hold you to that.
Let me finish,
Hold
Mr. Dubois.
on, Mr. Dubois.
I think Mr. Dubois, you should have just joined Mr. Yartoe.
We don't want to go into framework
I just want to hold you to that.
I
How
think
will you
document.
I think the longer Mr. Dubois stays here now, they'll bring people.
We don't want to debate about the framework document. That was a big distraction. We want to go back to the
No. When Yartoe spoke, listen now. Yartoe said,
no, George
cannot show us anywhere. Listen now. Yartoe spoke and said, George Lobbo cannot show us anywhere in the document where something changed. Instead of set up differently. You hear those statements being made? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. We don't want to go into framework.
Yeah, but we're not going into it. So now it is my turn to respond. So what you should do first is that since he spoke,
then let's give George the opportunity to respond.
I mean, you can't.
George, we ended this.
No. Telvina asked the question. I didn't respond. Yartoe took on the question first. Yartoe spoke. In his answer, he then said, "This is why George Lobbo then cannot show us
talk about this framework."
For me to speak.
Go ahead, George. Don't waste our time any further. Let's go at the framework document. 30 seconds. Go ahead.
So here's what I would say. The Liberian people, since Mr. Yartoe said nothing was altered, Mr. Cummings on his own Facebook page accepted responsibility and apologized. And I would just say to the Liberian people, this is a man who has worked in a structured environment. This is a man who knows what it means to submit a legal document, but a legal document will be submitted with a signature page from an old document. That is something in any country, if it has happened, that's fraudulent. And that is how I would end that question.
Thank you so much. We want to thank all of you for your time tonight on this, and we want to thank our analysts. Keep your dial set here and focus on Liberia, where we want to discuss the issues, all the little fluff and things that distract us from discussing the main issues. We want to do our best so as to redirect this conversation. We want to thank our viewers. At this time, we will ask our debaters to give their closing argument, and you have 2 minutes each.
No, that is 1 minute. We stay here too long. 1 minute each, if you don't mind.
1 minute too small for Lobbo.
Nah, Yartoe first. Go ahead.
Mr. Yartoe, go ahead.
Well, thank you, Dennis and Ansony and Telvi and Mansfield, my good friend. Good to see you. And George, okay. George is a wonderful friend of mine, and I think we just see things differently. That the Liberian people have said over and over again that they want change. That they threw out the old guard in 2017 because they wanted change. That change brought George Weah, and it was not the real change they wanted. They wanted lives to be improved. Those concessions that George talked about when it comes to foreign direct investment, those were squandered opportunity, and somebody got to right that wrong. Cummings has the capability, he has the competence to right that wrong. Cummings brings to the table the kind of change that we're looking for in the leadership, the structure, the discipline that it takes. You may have experiences, it's like I always said, you're a mechanic, you have an experiences in being around the field. You haven't had any experiences in directing and taking up that engine. Cummings brings to the table the kind of change that we want, that can provide the leadership that we're looking for. A guy who understands that the people must be employed in order for them to contribute. That in the challenge and in the face of challenges where most of our children are not educated and they need special skill set, that in order to attract foreign direct investment that we all talk about, you got to have somebody who understands the market and somebody who's participated in the market. And I think Cummings brings to the table that leadership that we need now to move Liberia in the next direction.
Thank you. Mr. Lobbo, your 1 minute, sir.
Let me say thanks to every one of you. Overall, I want to thank the Liberian people who stayed up with us to follow the discussion. I want to thank our two panelists, not panelists, our analysts, both of them, Sister Vina and Mr. Dopu. I want to thank you, Dennis Ja and Ansony Sieh, Mr. Yartoe as well, representing the ANC. But there are two things I want Liberians to understand when I leave from here today. Mr. To clearly demonstrated his inability to articulate Mr. Cummings' vision for the country. Mr. To, at some point in time, has no understanding on the differences between the private sector and the public sector. That was demonstrated here tonight. And I'll say to you, Liberians are sitting home, Mr. To is running on the argument of change. Liberians know what happened when they went for change. The Unity Party had expanded the budget from 80 million to 520 some more $million. Yet, indeed, they decided that they wanted to try change. Since they tried change, we know what have happened. This is the only government recording record-breaking revenue, but yet cannot meet 40% of its expenditure. Now, what do we have again? We have Mr. Yartoe and the other folks telling us about change, change, change. Now, I'm glad that the CPP have given you Liberians the opportunity to see the type of change and the type of leadership Mr. Cummings will exhibit if he had the country. Again, I will say to you, Ambassador Boakai remains the hope for rescuing the soul of Liberia. This is someone who has been tested, who has the experience. On the basis of that, if you believe that there's a need for us to move forward, I want to say, welcome to the GMB camp, and that is how we'll be able to rescue the country and move Liberia forward. Thank you all.
Thank you. Mr. Dropo, your closing comments?
Well,
can I leave? Oh, sorry. I thought we could leave. Well, sorry. Go ahead, sir.
I want to thank you, Dennis and Ansony and Telvina, Yartoe and Lobbo for the opportunity. I mean, you guys, you guys have created this discourse. You guys have created this platform that seeks to educate, and inform our people. It's a very feisty debate by two, strong debaters who are very passionate about their bosses, their political bosses. It's good for our democracy to have these kind of civil dialogue where we can brainstorm, because it's all geared towards making our country a wholesome, functioning, democratic society where our people, their aspirations will be met. I don't think it's about Cummings or Boakai. I mean, our shareholder or the people who we work for, is the Liberian people. And once we can project these kind of feelings for their general well-being, the public good, it's important. It's good. It's healthy for all of us. So, I want to thank you, especially Ansony and Dennis, for availing yourself. It takes sacrifice, to have these kind of discussions. We all have our own, personal things we've got to do and stuff like that. But staying up this late and making sure that our people get such an education from their own citizens, is very instructive for our democracy. So have a good night, everybody, and may God bless our country. Thank you.
Thank you. Tavi? You are muted, Tavi. Unmute yourself, Tavina.
I echo what Dopu said. I mean, both of them did well in selling their candidates. Also, would appreciate people that stay up. I know it's very late, in Liberia, other parts of the world, but I just look at my time, 10:44, so it's even late on the East Coast. So, I mean, people eager to hear what's going on in Liberia and around. So, I mean, you got almost 400 people that stuck with you guys. So, really appreciate that time, and we don't take that so lightly. Wish everybody a blessed week, and thanks for having me on. We'll be following. All right, good night.
Good night. Mr. Sieh, this is your area.
All right, folks, this is how we will come to the end of this debate, and we will close the debate with this poem written by Dennis Ja. Just looking. Some in silence, some just talking. Just looking. Looking beyond the limit and still looking. We are looking for leadership in Liberia. That is what I'm telling you. If this did not give you an opportunity to spark that search for a leader, for a country we dearly love, all of us, then think again. Until we start debating the issues, we will be fighting. We saw it with CPP, and we still seeing it. Let us debate the issue. then we will focus on the Liberian people and the things that matter. That is why we educate, we elevate, and promote all things Liberia. This is how we come to the end of the broadcast. Thank you for watching. Enjoy the song. We are all Liberians. Bye-bye.
We are Liberians. Liberia is our